Well, welcome back to Fat, Dumb, and Angry. We're doing something different today. We're checking out, does Go Woke really go broke? We're going to go over some statistical data, and we're going to find out, we're going to get to the bottom of this matter,
Yes,
I guess. I don't know.
maybe. I'm sure no. There is no bottom. It's an endless void.
No
Clearly.
bottoms. There's only tops.
Oof.
All right, what's the beginning?
Oh.
You know what I mean? So I can
Let me
cut it.
explain. Yes. All right. The way I imagined the Go Woke, Go Broke conversation, the reason why I imagined it with movies first is because I feel like the beginning of this conversation began with famous Ghostbusters, maybe. I feel like that movie began this whole kind of I don't know, conversation, let's say. I mean, there might have been things before that. There was the Gillette, commercials. I mean, maybe that even came after, honestly. I don't remember. But the Ghostbuster was a fascinating kind of cultural milestone, I think, because it really exploded, and the movie did so badly that, this whole idea of a movie sort of, I don't know, going woke and failing because of it.
These big cultural moments. We've got, for the left, Donald Trump getting elected. For the right, 4 women in a movie. It's big cultural moments that changed everything.
Well, that was before also The Last Jedi, too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think it's interesting to...
But I think, okay, because I think The Last Jedi, like you said, if Ghostbusters was the beginning, I think Last Jedi might have been the crescendo.
Well, yes, yeah. I think that period, 2016, 2017, was just a period of contentiousness in general. But these, and it really exploded with these movies. But I mean, I want to start with the 2016 and go up to 2022 because obviously we don't have much data for 2023 yet. And before 2016, I can't think of too many movies that really invoke that sort of controversy. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are some movies that you can think of, but this is what we're having this conversation for. Because also, this is just sort of partly my my bias or my ideas around it. So maybe I've got it totally wrong. So I think this is interesting just to have a conversation in terms of figuring out,
Well, of course, because I think it's definitely been one of those cultural things that, kind of like a lot of these conversations, it's going to be, what's the word they use? Whether it's 2 different pictures that, or one picture, 2 different people seeing it differently. Or something like that.
interpretations.
Okay, so Joe went through, made this list of all these movies, how many on there? Like 100 or something? 400?
450 or so, I think.
I went through, I picked a bunch that maybe I would say are not woke movies pretty quickly. He made a list of movies he said were woke. We organized them by release date, so maybe we'll go through them, by the 2016 down to most recent.
Well, all right, yeah, we could do that. Now, if you want to do, I thought maybe it'd be a better way to check a statistical average to be judging these movies off. Because, again, because what we're going to have to do, of course, at the very beginning of this conversation is kind of figure out what we mean by woke and not woke. And by also figure out what we mean by go broke and go woke, go broke. Because I think, does go woke, go broke mean that the movies just underperform the non-woke movies? Does it mean it just underperforms in general? You don't have to do that. I already did that all. What are you trying to do?
I was gonna see. Yeah, did you make a
Average?
out of all of it? Okay.
Yeah, I made
Okay,
averages
you
and
did
stuff.
that
Yep.
already.
So
Okay.
I just hit it, so you can't see it yet. So I was gonna
Okay.
reveal it at the end. That's all, because we don't want to jump the gun here.
Okay.
Discuss the topic first, and then
Because I'm thinking that's a very interesting number already. If you've compiled 400 movies, because I would automatically want to jump. I would be confident already jumping off the boat saying more movies probably lose money than make money.
Yes, I think that's very fair. And also, an interesting thing to point out is the sort of if you graph all these movie, because we have. Maybe we should go over the spreadsheet before we discuss more details, though, because
Yes.
I want to talk about the columns and what they mean.
So I'm going to be cutting between my video and the
right.
spreadsheet. So you'll be seeing. I mean, this is kind of for the video. They'll be seeing me disappear, come back and forth.
Yeah,
and
you're gonna
stuff
pop
like
it up,
that,
and
so.
yeah, the parts. All right, so we'll talk as if they can see
All
it.
right.
You mean? Oh no.
So here's the data. I mean,
Here's the spreadsheet.
you can kind of. I mean, obviously, it's going to be. If you're on your computer, you can kind of see it. But if you're on your phone, I guess good fucking luck.
zoom in, yeah. Well, anyway, the point is there's basically 3 categories that we took into consideration: the production budget, the domestic box office, and the international box office. Now, all this data is coming from the same website, which I think is called what? TheNumbers.com or yeah, TheNumbers.com. And on the website, they do have a caveat in terms of production budget that it's not. Production budgets are generally inconsistent, or how do you say? they're generally underreported. So it says sometimes an estimate production budget or whatever information they get from the companies. So I figured the best way to determine, to compare two different movies is not by just production budget and raw numbers, but by the ratio between the box office and the production budget.
Okay.
So generally, what they say is that a movie has to make 2 times the box office, 2 times the production budget
To break
even.
Yeah.
So, so that's kind of one idea that we have. So because of that, I've been just compiling a ratio. So we have 2 columns. We have the world box office over the production budget, which is column H there. And then we have the domestic box office over the production budget. Now, I haven't done too much to compare those two. That could be another sort of avenue of conversation to see if there's a difference between the world box office and the domestic, because Go Woke, Go Broke is sort of an American phenomenon, let's be honest. So perhaps it is it only depends on the domestic box office, because some movies don't perform so well in the States, but do perform really well overseas.
It determines what you mean by overseas too, because a lot of the movies that depend on good overseas money are usually depending on China, which I think just coincidentally sometimes the movie Chinese people, they got issues with the same ones in the woke, that people might say are woke. So I think that's why you might have some overlap in that.
But it's still interesting to compare both numbers. Yeah. So I just got both there. I mean, it's pretty simple to just do a ratio and just copy it all down for the whole list. So we can see the numbers. And I only the production budget I just did from 10 million and more from 2016 to 2022. I was thinking of going lower and lower. I mean, maybe up to even 1 million, but 10 million seems like just an even number to stop at, because there's a lot. There's a lot of movies out there. Also, I also got rid of all the movies that didn't have any overseas box office. I mean, there weren't. Basically, what that meant was I got rid of almost all the Netflix movies.
Yeah, I was about to say that we should probably mention what we're doing with the video on demand movies. Yeah.
Yeah, those kind of got removed from the whole conversation. What are the movies? Pretty much anything, because I also searched only American movies. I should mention that as well. That's why there's no. Everything has a domestic box office, but some of them didn't have an international box office, because obviously I felt like this conversation again is mostly centered on American movies. So international movies really don't get the same sort of controversy about Go Woke, Go Broke, even though I'm sure there are some that you probably could consider woke, right? But now, are there?
Yeah, I remember seeing a commercial for this movie, and it was a movie about like a refugee. And maybe it was an Italian movie or something. But the trailer for it was just like a naked black dude walking up to like a white woman or something like that. And I'm like, I have a feeling. I don't know. I have a feeling that movie might be.
Could be.
But again, there's so many like these art movies that are released. One of my favorite directors, not Lars von Trier, but there's this other guy. He's like this. He makes some really weird movies. He came out with the movie Vortex about like Alzheimer's, like old people in France, and I can't imagine those movies ever making money.
No.
But so I'd be like, they'd never probably end up on this list at all.
Well, I mean, as long as the budget was high enough, that's what made it on the list. So how much money? Because there's some movies, if you sort by domestic box office, for example, some movies made so little money, it's insane. And most movies I've never even heard of course. But I think the first part of this conversation we need to have is how we're going to judge. How we're going to make this. We have a hypothesis, right? That movies.
Well, the hypothesis that we're testing, is go woke, go broke. So if something is woke, does it go broke, right?
Yes. Does it underperform at the box office is what we're basically defining go broke as. And
because we get that it's an expression, so it's probably something that, like most expressions, doesn't mean it's 100% of the time, but I guess we imagine that if it's more than half, that would mean it's a more accurate expression than less accurate, right? That's what we're probably looking for? Something like that?
I'm just thinking comparing to the average. And of course, we have to figure out what the average is another complicated thing. But if, for example, woke movies on average performed about the same as all the other movies, then it really doesn't mean much to say go woke, go broke, for example, right? Because you're just pointing out that they all do about the same average-wise. I would imagine if it's actually does designate some sort of phenomenon, that they would underperform, so the movies would generally do worse. I mean, of course, not all, because statistical variance, but by average, they would do worse.
And of course, that also doesn't mean that non-woke movies make money, right?
So that's not about making money, honestly. It's just about comparison to other movies. And
because you would imagine that go woke, go broke, so they would make less money than they're forecasting, I guess.
Yeah, I would even say the forecasting stuff is another. I don't have any statistical data about
And
what
we don't know how
forecasted to be.
big business works.
I would assume forecast means they make more money than their production budget, or they make they make surplus money. I would hope that's what every movie is. Although of course that's not quite true, because think of how many Marvel movies or Disney movies still make money but still are considered failures somehow because they don't make, I don't know, $1 billion or something ridiculous like that. So that's, I think, another part of this conversation, but maybe not. It's not
because production budget. Because there's also this other word that I hear too, which I think is like this idea of projections, which I think is the idea of how much like the board wants things to make, which is also a different number than production. But we also, that number is just a number they can come up with whenever they want. So can't really worry about that. But
so it's just still. I mean, I just wanted to have a caveat here, say that this is sort of a very basic kind of analysis. This is nothing meant to be like definitive or anything like that. But I think it's just an interesting way to take a statement, like a concept, and actually try to see if there's anything behind it. Just the basics, Obviously, it's like a jumping point for further research, but I don't know. I mean, it's pretty easy to bring this data up because the website made it easy to compile it. So
next we're doing once you go black, you don't go back.
Yes,
but that data is a lot harder to compile.
That's gonna have to go down the street and ask everybody.
Okay, so, and I guess is the next part we have to define woke.
Yeah. We have to define the terms that we're dealing with. So we have go broke. We already defined. Go broke. We mean just compared to other movies if they underperform. And that's not how I'm defining go broke. Woke,
that's the easy part.
Yes, the harder part is woke, obviously, because we're gonna have to figure out define which movies are woke and which movies are not woke, and
we're gonna have different opinions on that, I'm sure.
Absolutely, that's why I figure most of this conversation is gonna be over. And as Nick already has, he's got the dictionary up there. Now, the very beginning of the of woke, it was the AAVE definition of woke, right? Is that up there first, or
I was going to. We should probably move this forward ahead. But I was going to go for, because what I did at the end was I tried to. I looked up what woke means, and I got the Merriam-Webster definition or whatever. Then I wanted to get a definition of somebody on the right, so I got Ben Shapiro's definition. Somebody I would consider someone in the middle. I got PSA Sitch's definition, and people on the left, which was harder, but I know. I wanted to get somebody.
The AAV is not.
Well, I wanted to get somebody comparable with Ben Shapiro on the left, so I got
Sam
Schenck and Anna Kasparian, because
they have one.
They have. I mean,
they have something.
The closest I can get, and then yes. So then I just searched how does the left define woke, and I got the AAV.
Yeah.
So
well, I think that's where the term came from. So it's important to start from the beginning. That's where the term originally began. It just basically means aware of systemic racism or systemic bias. Basically, racial prejudice and discrimination. Yeah, and I think that's
when I should probably click on the article, but when did that first start? That probably started like a long time ago, right?
I think so. I think it was in songs and stuff, maybe from the 90s. I don't know. You can check, but maybe even earlier than that.
Hartford, Connecticut, Joe?
Seriously, we got some connection there. Presidential race?
What? No. Wide Awake with Hartford, Connecticut.
Oh, against Abraham Lincoln. Oh, there's actually next to the building that my uncle lived in Hartford, Connecticut. There's a little plaque for some.
No, I'm kidding.
There's a plaque there that actually says something about a presidential campaign against Lincoln. A speech that was done there. But
anyway, I think the current vernacular for woke maybe has been around the 2000s, because we need to have people have been saying it recently, but of course it's been around earlier than that, of black people talking about being awake to.
Think about I think the earliest I can remember is what was that Childish Gambino song?
Rage Against the Machine, Wake Up.
No, but they don't really say woke. There's one Childish Gambino song.
Stay woke.
Exactly. Yes. It's a Stay Woke, and that's for me.
I hypocrite use that song all the time.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
That's where I heard it. Yeah.
But what year is that song? Maybe it was. It must have been before 2016, I think.
And he was definitely probably using it in the original way, not in a sarcastic way.
He wasn't talking about just staying awake. Let's put it that way. I think he was.
Of course, we know that definition.
Yes.
The actual definition.
Movies that keep you awake. We should do that.
Which is not,
Which is not half of these movies, honestly.
Not Lars von Trier film. Except for maybe Nymphomaniac.
Keeps you awake in a different way.
And then we look at the Merriam-Webster dictionary, aware of or actively attentive to important societal facts and issues, especially issues of race and social justice. That's one.
Yep.
Often used in context that suggests somebody expressed beliefs about such matters. are not backed with genuine concern or action,
All right, so fake woke.
Yeah.
That's what it says there below. Yeah.
reflecting the attitude of woke people. Well, that's just a simple.
That's not a helpful one.
Okay, so that's Merriam. So basically, I guess maybe the one at
That's
the
very
top.
similar. Let me just interject. Because another definition I think is interesting is because obviously this whole conversation of woke has now exploded because of mostly DeSantis in Florida, and he's sort of the big
Well,
anti-woke crusader.
No, it was before that.
Yeah, I
'Cause
know.
Donald Trump, he tried to ban CRT,
Yep.
stuff like that. I think there was a lot of the word woke used, I think.
But I feel like Donald Trump has always been using terms without any sort of actual definitions behind them. I think that's what kind of he does.
He's terminally
DeSantis,
online.
yeah, exactly. But DeSantis, I feel like has a more, or maybe I'm just wrong, but I
Oh.
feel like he has a more explicit meaning. And there was a court case,
And he had to actually define it,
So
too,
I was
which
going to
is
bring
the
that up
thing,
because
yeah.
I think if you can Google it or it's not that hard to do, just DeSantis definition of woke. It's very similar, I think, to the Merriam-Webster one or whatever, or even the traditional definition, or the AAVE one. Because it was like in a court case, his lawyer had to define woke for something.
It's on the Hill.
It's on a couple things. No, it's from like a couple years ago, isn't it? It's not that one, is it? No, this is. I think this is this is like the. He also recently defined woke again because they're
Look, we know woke is a form of cultural
search
Marxism.
lawyer. DeSantis lawyer defines woke because it was from a law case and his lawyer is the one actually. I think right there. Yeah, that should be the one.
It means the belief there are systemic injustices in American society and the need to address them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is pretty similar, I think, to even the AVE definition or definitely the Webster Dictionary one. It's pretty broad. Just
Well-
recognition of social injustice, basically, right? And
I
maybe
mean,
an activist aspect to it.
Because systemic. I mean, but the thing the AVE specifically mentions, it's racial, you know, and so systemic injustices. I mean, that can pretty much. I don't know. That
Include gender, you
changes
mean?
it, yeah.
Yeah, good. Yeah, it's a bit broader.
Because the AVE. I mean, of course, the AVE is for black people, so we're talking about black people. Yeah.
Okay, so we have
In the context of them.
a general context of what woke kind of means. It obviously means about injustice, and we have Ben Shapiro's.
Ben
which,
Shapiro is so. This is like the right, I guess, the writer, right definition. Western civilization and its institutions were and are discriminatory and serve the purpose of those in power, typically white, straight men, whatever. The discrimination is both historic and ongoing, and all group disparities are explained by it. So
That's Shapiro's
yes,
definition. Yep.
Ben Shapiro's definition. PSA Sitch wants to call himself a centrist. Woke is the belief that society needs to wake up to the idea that liberalism can't solve its cultural problems, and so something else must be adopted, usually some form of cultural Marxism.
Okay.
And the problem is with, I don't know, I had a hard time coming up with people on the left because, I mean, Cenk
they
Uygur is a funny one.
So,
So
you have something funny? Okay, I haven't seen this.
I'm not gonna. I'm gonna play the video, but the problem is you won't get the audio, so I have the captions on. I'll just read it.
All right.
Maybe I'll try to do a Jank impression, but I don't know. But
You watch enough of it to know his.
no,
Sorry.
that's not gonna play. But anyway, so what he said is, okay, so what's woke? What's woke? I don't know. Your whole stupid book is about it because this was from the
Who's
the
he
video.
talking to? Yeah.
Okay, so this video, the context of this was there was a clip that went viral of this woman who
Yes.
wrote a book about
Yeah.
what is woke, right?
That lady.
And everyone reacted to it. So this was the closest I can get to these people defining woke or whatever.
Yep.
So basically, what he says, I don't know. Your whole book, your whole stupid book is about it. You don't know because you made it up. All you're trying to say is you should hate the others. I can't believe these people don't hate. They should hate these woke people don't hate enough.
That's his definition? What?
That's the closest I can get to him. Kind of come up with a definition of what maybe he thinks thinks. I mean, Anna Kasparian's is closer to something real.
All right. Yeah, it doesn't sound like much of a definition. It sounds
Yeah,
like.
I mean,
So
that's-
I think what
the
he's.
problem is I wish there was a news article where any of these people put out their definition, but I can't because they're not on Twitter either.
Wow.
and I can't
think,
find-
I think the point of the left is that woke doesn't really have a definition. It's just
Well-
whatever you want it to mean is what they, I think, generally are trying to say. So what'd she say? Let's see what she says.
And then, because he's talking about the same thing, the lady was bumbling, stumbling. It's okay to have a bad moment. She's a little
Yeah.
nicer. And by the way, woke is difficult to define because it's become a catch-all for anything the right doesn't like, which I think is honestly a more accurate
Yeah.
description of what the left thinks.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I think that's fair. Yep. So I think that actually, what I was gonna say. Now we brought those definitions. Unless you have another definition you want to go into.
I mean, I think that unless do you have anybody that has defined
those
it or
are
something?
actually the ones I was
trying to
bringing up too. Actually, the Ben Shapiro
Yeah.
one, the DeSantis one.
trying to get a
AAV
circle,
one.
but
Because so my perspective is more from the leftist side. So I have the inclination to believe that woke is loosely defined to be not actually something super stringent. It is something that some things they don't like, therefore they call woke. So that's why I feel like when we're making our list of woke movies, it'll be interesting to see which ones you pick, which ones I picked, because now when I picked woke movies, I just want to say I picked some movies that I remember being called woke, some movies that I thought were called woke, and some movies that I might myself consider woke based on the more AAVE or just about movies that were about racial justice or something like that. So that's kind of, now that's not a very, I will admit right now, that's not exactly a scientific approach, because I didn't pick a strict definition of woke to go with. I think almost that having a weak definition of woke, that my list should mostly consider of movies that were just called woke by other people. I think that would be the best way, actually. If I was to say that woke doesn't mean anything, then I would just select movies that, the conservatives or right pundits or people on YouTube were just screaming about, saying
they
that they're
call woke.
Yes,
Because,
exactly. And then, since I don't really have a definition, that's mostly what I picked. But I also wanted to see, because I do think that there is something behind the woke idea, like this conversation of wokeness. It's not completely just like it's not just going after windmills here. There's an actual concept behind something behind it. So movies, like I think the best example is like the Black Klansman movie. I think that's probably one of the wokest movies made in the last 7-8 years. But I don't think many people call it woke because, and this is, I kind of wanted to bring this aspect into this conversation, is it's called Go Woke. I think that a lot of people who are complaining movies are woke aren't saying that, they're not upset that the movie is woke. They're upset that the movie's woke when it shouldn't be woke. That's what I think the conversation is.
well,
Maybe.
it does. It probably is just, if not offshoot, or basically just the continuation of, people not liking them changing IPs. No coincidence. I think it's a big chunk of the fanboy kind of stuff, and that kind of stuff. So,
Absolutely.
also too, in my opinion, I do kind of get it as well, because it does feel like, from a certain perspective, there's usually media targets. It feels like media targets people because of demographics and stuff, and so usually back, especially before 2016, things were kind of, I don't want to say segregated, but they were kind of more targeted than they are now. When with the whole push for the Go Woke and everything like that, it seemed more going woke was kind of making your product for everybody, and so that's why these groups would be upset. I think is because they saw that this thing that for them, like a Transformers movie or whatever, is now not for them anymore, because they're targeting a different audience that's not for them, as opposed to when they would look at maybe romance movies and things targeted for other people that weren't changed in those directions. It was just they would see it as just being changed for their direction, as opposed to like Tyler Perry movies don't have to include half white people, or whatever, because
and no one's gonna be surprised if a Tyler Perry movie has, or maybe they would actually. I have no idea what Tyler Perry movies are actually about. But let's say a Spike Lee film. No one's gonna be surprised if Spike Lee film talks about race, or maybe even it has a very critical stance on
your
United
Captain
States
America
government.
movie.
They might have a bit. That might be something that surprises. Now I think we're jumping ahead of ourselves a little bit, though. So
probably.
maybe you should start going through the movies. But
which ones do you want to start going through? The woke ones first, or the ones I picked?
I watch.
And also,
well, we can go through mine if you. I don't know. How do you feel? Like, Cat's got it on the box. Because I think it's because we already mentioned one topic I think that's important. It's about the fan base reaction, which I think this Go Woke, Go Broke can't be removed from. I think it's very important, or it's integral to the whole conversation, just how much it's fueled by a sort of fan base reaction, like the Ghostbusters movie, like the Star Wars movies, because I feel like movies that are going woke in a really politically active sense, that's one thing. But movies that are claimed to be woke, but reality is that they're just either having more representation in them, or they're just different than what people are expecting of their, Ghostbusters movie. Which is, I mean, we could start there if you want, because Ghostbusters, it was just they just had 4 women instead of the guys, right? I mean,
that's what did you see the new Ghostbusters movie?
Yeah, the one
I
from
mean, there was
2016, right?
a lot of other things in it too that they changed other than that.
Well, but I mean,
for example, in the original Ghostbusters movie, they have a woman as their secretary, but she's not a ditz, right?
Yep.
She's like a character. Instead, in this movie, they make the man just a hunk of meat for them to be, which is kind of the exact opposite of what they would do if it was a female character, right? If they kept that character a woman, they wouldn't have made it that at all. Specifically, only doing it because it's a man,
Yeah.
Kind of woke. The thing is,
that's woke though. Is
specifically, that's what.
That's what we're considering as woke. Just gender swapping. And
gender swapping not necessarily. I would like I say with these things, the Ben Shapiro definition, systemic, injustice, right?
Yeah.
I think as well. I mean, it's hard too, but motive plays a part in these kind of things as well, right? If they say like the guy who made that movie said a lot of things about women stuff, and we finally got a movie with 4 women and all this kind of stuff that they're so proud about, which kind of makes it in a certain direction of like, well, what do you mean they couldn't have had one of them be a man and it be a good movie? Like it could have been, but it's important for it to be women, and that makes it woke because why does that matter, right? It's because they're trying to, through other ways, solve maybe systemic injustices or whatever,
So representation
through representation
itself is a woke
I would say
thing?
representation for the sake of representation is, yeah.
But
I would say that would make a thing woke, right? If you have a movie about Native Americans, and that they're Native Americans in the movie, then that's not representation. That's just what the movie's about.
Yeah, but having a diverse cast, let's say, that's representation in a way. And is that woke?
I mean, no.
I mean, you could say that,
but if you
don't know what the Hollywood executives are doing.
If you're doing
right?
it, because another one we're going to talk about, of course, is probably The Little Mermaid, right?
Oh,
when you do like, when you do race swaps and that kind of stuff, which is of course a big topic of the Go Woke Go Broke.
Yep.
Why are you? The question is usually why are you doing that, right? And it's usually to make a big deal out of it. It's not usually like if it was. I mean, I don't know. There's one argument I hear, like if the argument is that it's the best actor for the job, then you would imagine that the best actor for the job would look like the character. Like you think that would be a part of the factor of, like if you're picking the main character for the Northman, why would you pick a fat dude? Like you're going to pick a buff dude or someone who can get buff, right? Yeah. To look like the character. I mean, that's probably why they picked a white guy as well. I mean, so
but they
that's just something to ignore that, I would say, and, to... and spitefully go against that, right? Especially if it's like a really white thing, to make sure that there's black people in it. That would be representation.
Yeah, that's when they do like think of like Bridgerton or something. You ever see those movies where they're like
Cleopatra, the new thing that came out recently. That's like a great example of
Cleopatra, though. I think
she's not supposed to be black.
It's different though. Cleopatra, I feel like it's not about representation. It feels like it's about almost historical revisionism. Like Cleopatra isn't I
mean, Ancient Aliens is that too, isn't it? But it's not good because it's going to give people the wrong idea.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it's fair to criticize Cleopatra, that movie, for that purpose. But when we're talking about mystical characters like Little Mermaid, they're not supposed to be white or black. I mean, they're supposed to just be a mermaid. Who cares what their skin tone? And I just want to say one thing before you continue on about that. Is that it's hard to tell. I mean, I don't know what Disney decides. If they decided beforehand that they were going to have this character be a minority, or if they actually just picked a minority and then they want to now say, oh, look what we did after the fact. How do you? Because you're kind of having to say that they do it on purpose, that they pick this character as a minority on purpose, and then kind of parade them around like, look how good job we've done. And I don't know. I don't know if it's how you prove one way or the other. Like it would be. I think it would be one thing to say, yeah, like wow. Disney's like, we're just not gonna hire white people for this role, period. That would be pretty messed up, I think. I mean, did they say that explicitly? Because I don't know if they would be ballsy enough to say that in those words, right?
I mean,
yes, they have. Oh my God, they have a diversity thing.
I mean, honestly, this kind of weirds me out.
What, the diversity?
I mean, they have like a whole breakdown of everyone's race and everything. Like, I get it that this information is definitely out there. I mean, the post office probably has more information than that, but it's like. I don't know. I really don't want my job breaking us down by race and then making decisions based upon that.
True.
That's kind of creepy. But okay,
that's another.
But okay. So where are we really trying to start with? Just especially when we're working with the data too. Do you want us to start at like Ghostbusters or 2016 or.
Yeah, we go by time. I think it's a fair one. So wait,
So I try to organize these all by time.
by date. Yes.
Yeah.
I think if we go through my list, we can discuss if what makes the film woke or not. Well, your list was just other movies. You want to use that as like a
I didn't spend as much time going through my list as Joe. I tried to grab someone that I immediately off the top of my head went not woke.
Yes, and I think what you're trying to do, I thought, was you were trying to use that as a category of like the comparison to say, the non-woke movies versus the woke movies and how they. Okay, that's just fair enough. We could try, but just picking a random splattering of them like that, I think might be, it could be a little bit. Might get some good ones and bad ones in the mix. It's kind of hard to.
Yep.
You have to do a more consistent.
Well, you can judge. You can fight me on those too.
If they're woke or not. Well, I don't.
Yeah,
I'm sure most movies are not woke. I mean, in our definition, right? But anyway,
you imagine. Yeah.
let's go through my list first, and then you can tell me what you think, and then.
All right, so Ghostbusters 2016. Are you gonna fight me on this one being woke or not?
I mean, again, like my definition of woke is just what people say is woke. So I would say I think people called Ghostbusters woke. Yes, I don't think its movie was about a systemic or racial or gender dynamics at all. I think it was just a movie where they put women in and
But you don't
thought
think-
they were doing a good job. But
You don't think making sure to fill your cast with women is trying to fix those? Because they're, you have to
necessarily.
imagine before 2016 too. I remember leading up to this, we had the whole wage gap thing. We had the whole women like that. We had the whole wave of. I don't say it was third or fourth wave feminism or something like that, complaining
wave.
about the whole,
Yeah.
women's issues again or whatever. And I feel like where we got because before that, I mean, I'm from an age where we had like Underworld, Aeon Flux, these kind of women-centric movies
Yeah.
that were very different than the way they're doing them now.
yeah,
Somewhat.
there are some similarities. I think they were a little bit more sexualized in those movies, maybe.
But I remember
But
definitely when
they're
they're
still-
being.
yeah.
I definitely remember when they're like, okay. I guess you think like you look at Ghostbusters and you think that original Ghostbusters movie they made. Did they pick them specifically because they were men?
I think that you could probably make an argument that they wouldn't have
They only-
considered women at
well,
all for those roles.
They only had the
probably.
opportunity because they were men, but where they probably weren't picked because
They
were
probably
men.
figured that movies would be more successful with male leading actors as opposed to a female
yeah.
cast, probably.
And they were probably picked because they thought they were funny and because it was one or two of their idea.
And they're already famous,
Yes.
most of them, right?
And I imagine that they picked the women in the cast too because they thought they were funny. And I
Yep.
think that's
And already well known. Most of them were
But-
pretty known actresses at the time, right? One was SNL.
I
Lady,
maybe
What's,
because I do remember a lot of that movie. Also, remember the villain of the movie was kind of like your internet troll basement boy. Some of these movies do, yeah. 'cause
they do
like-
that sometimes.
yeah.
I think we have to the content of the movie. If the content of the movie is trying to make a statement like that, like for example, I think for me the wokest. I mean, this is not on the list, so it doesn't matter if we talk about this one, but because I think the budget was too low, so it wasn't included. But the remake of Black Christmas, remember that movie? Now,
Yeah.
for me, that is a perfect example of a woke movie, and a pretty terrible one at that. I admit that was not good, but that was woke because not only was it a mostly female cast, but it was trying to make a statement about gender dynamics, and it was framing men as, I mean, they did, I think, a poor job at framing. At the patriarchy and then just labeling all men as part of the patriarchy kind of thing. And that's what I think woke movies, particularly bad woke movies, do. So I think there's a difference between a movie that's explicit message is to discuss issues of patriarchy and feminism versus a movie that just puts women in it. I mean, we're
Yeah.
going to talk about some other ones that do
But
the same
there
thing.
could be a lot of
but
movies.
yes, fair enough.
I'm also willing to bet every single movie on this list has a woman in it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't seen all of them
Well,
actually. So
Birth of a Nation. I actually have no idea about this movie. This is the next one.
yeah, I don't know either. I only include it because it's obviously about race. It's about a Nate Turner revolution.
So you just want to say yes?
No, you can put no. I don't care. I mean, it's what you think.
I bet it's probably woke.
I don't know, honestly. Okay, sure.
Okay, we'll do
Say maybe. Yeah, why not?
N.A.
Okay.
Hidden Figures.
Is that woke? Did you see that?
Was that woke? I didn't see the movie. I definitely saw the conversation around the movie. I don't remember the movie being that woke. I remember some people trying to make the argument
Do you remember that?
that there was like somebody else who really did something or whatever. But there's always that argument. Whenever they make a movie about somebody famous, they're like, there's really somebody else who did it.
Well, the historical accuracy of. But you know what that movie was about?
It was about the three black ladies and the math or whatever.
The controversy was it was a white savior film, which a few of these I think might be
was a
considered
white savior?
white savior films. A little bit. It had Kevin Costner as the dude that
Oh, they hate Kevin Costner.
cured racism or something slightly. You know, like But the scene with the women's bathroom where he breaks the colored women's bathroom sign, or no colors allowed sign or something on the women's bathroom, because he's like, I want my scientists to pee when they have to pee, god damn it.
Oh.
And then I don't care about race, I just want the smartest. And that's a very typical sort of race blind portrayal. So is it woke? But it's also woke in the sense that it's focused just mostly on the women, mostly women of color, and their trials and tribulations in terms of a racist society. So I don't know. I included it because it's specifically about race, and it was also a popular movie. So maybe that's another. Maybe,
And it's just you talking about race doesn't necessarily make something woke. There are movies that I know that have talked about race.
Yep.
Like how about? I mean, I know there's not Hoosiers, but there was one of those basketball movies I know that talked about race. I remember seeing in high school that wasn't.
Remember the Titans?
Really,
Remember
yeah.
that. That's
like
a perfect
that,
example. See, this is a good example, I think, of I don't know. Let's say the pre-BLM period. I don't know if that's even a good term for it, but there was these movies about race that sort of, and they call them kind of white savior films, or films that portray race as a product of the past versus films that portray race as a constant ongoing issue. So movies like, I think Hidden Figures is one of them as well, but like Remember the Titans, where racism is sort of solved by the end of the film. So it ends on a happy note, and they all get together and be like, yeah, we're all together now, and all the racist people, we kick them out, or they just, because the racist people in those films are really racist. Like, they're spitting on people, they're burning crosses, like, it's not about so much systemic racism, it's about individual racists.
Well, it's because back then they had real racism, and so systemic racism was the new stuff they had to come up with, so there'd still be racism. Because back when people would run around and say the N-word and like hunt down black people, that needed to stop because that was real racism. But I mean, and of course that's a lot easier to put in a movie because it's so obvious. It's a lot easier to get people on your side. Making a movie about systemic racism is gonna be a lot harder, I think, to film and. You know what I mean? Like,
I think there's some out there, but still. So that's but I think. If you think about it,
I don't know.
So put him NA. That's fine. If it's not obvious, that's fine. We don't have to. I think it might be more interesting to see the obvious one.
Beauty and the Beast.
Ooh, it's a good one. Yeah, because I thought there was conversation about it.
There was, because they made one of the characters gay, but then they said like he was always gay, but then in the movie he never really did anything gay.
He has to be a drinker,
right?
Because I remember they had a gay kiss. I thought they did they it was either was it a gay dance or was it a gay kiss?
They actually had it. No, I thought that was just.
Oh. I thought they cut it out for China or something. I think of another movie that did that.
Maybe, you think of another movie I think that did that. Are you thinking of, I think one of the Star Wars movie had a gay kiss in the background that they cut out in China.
Well, anyway, they had a gay character in the movie. I know that was that was a point of conversation that people were talking about and, hating on Disney for because they made, what's his face gay? John Gad's character, whatever his name is.
Let's say no on that one. Because I remember the gay conversation and that kind of stuff. But there's also you have to remember too that there's all these different sections on the internet, and there's a group of people who just hate gays on the internet, and they definitely overlap with the Go Woke Go Broke. But because they're complaining about gays, doesn't necessarily make it a woke movie. Because other than that, like the movie, from what I remember, did kind of stay similar with some of the themes, where she did, because some of the other, what would make it definitely more woke with like the Little Mermaid movie and stuff like that, having to change things like that so she's not dependent on the man and stuff like that to win the movie, stuff like that would be more of a sign. But
so is it just because they didn't have enough gay stuff in Beauty and the Beast that doesn't make it woke? Because there's other Disney movies they've made with gay characters that have been called woke.
Just having gay characters doesn't make it woke.
Are you sure?
Having forced representation would.
But how
the character didn't, like, if I remember really, like, Sam made me watch this movie. I don't really remember ever seeing anything gay. It was one of those things where, like, if you remember reading it online, you picked it up. But other than that, you have, like...
Yeah, I think you're right. It was very subtle, or it was like, I think he danced with a guy or something at the end of the movie, or maybe there was like a wink or...
It was one of those things, where you got... where people on YouTube would make their videos, but then when you saw the actual movie, you're like, oh.
But a lot of Disney characters were gay-coded back in the classic Disney period. So
that's a conversation. Gay-coded,
But anyway, so maybe that's... I don't know. You're right. We can move on. But I think that's...
Other than that, though, I feel like they mostly kept the whole movie very similar. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the character was already a woman who liked to read books and do all the... That's exactly what I mean. Like, you can make the...
Well, it's had a sort of feminist...
message already to it.
Already inside of it, yep.
The movie Mother, I really like this movie, actually. That was a good movie.
I don't know why I included... I was thinking about why I included on the list. Because it was about... feminism, kind of, wasn't it, or something? Wasn't it about?
It was about like the earth and religion and all this kind of stuff.
There's a lot of things going on in that movie. I don't know. I was a maybe on my part.
I would give it a hard no because
Okay, fair enough.
there's one part in this movie where at the end, when it's like kind of doing the end of the world kind of thing inside the house,
Yeah.
there's like people being grabbed and kidnapped, put against the wall, and then you hear in the background, you hear one of the guys saying like, "Grab them, check the goyim," and I'm like, "Oh my god!" They actually used the word goyim.
Yeah, but they might have been trying to make a
They could-
political.
yes.
And also, I wasn't.
Which I feel like yes, they were, but
This movie has a lot, obviously, layers to it, so that's probably why it's harder to distinguish, the political message. But wasn't the whole point that she was kind of forced to give birth or something? Was that what was going on in it?
yeah,
Forced to be
she
a
was
mother.
forced.
Isn't that already a sort of like? I mean,
Well,
couldn't that
because-
be like an abortion narrative? or
Well,
something?
no,
Or,
because I
like-
think the whole story of Mother was basically, it's kind of trying to be like a retelling of
Genesis?
reality,
Oh, what was it?
kind of like Genesis, yeah.
It was one of those
And
things,
so
I
her
thought, yeah.
husband was supposed to be a god, and she
Yeah,
is
yeah,
the
yeah.
earth or whatever. And so it's about, and basically what we see is the rise and fall of man just in their house and that kind of stuff. And so
Hmm. Yeah.
that's what I feel like the movie was trying to say more than anything else.
Sure,
But
that's fine. Yeah,
I-
that's fine. Yeah, move on.
Star Wars: Last Jedi, that's a yes.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean,
Do we need to talk about
no,
that?
don't need to go into that one. I mean, there's already tomes of internet, there's
Yeah.
gigabytes and terabytes of YouTube data designated only to that subject.
Let me do my what's his name? Lynch impression. Laura Dern is the greatest actress of all time. Which
Well,
she's a great actress, but
Again, if we, no,
Black Panther, because we
that's another good example. Yeah, is Black Panther woke or not?
this is a good one. Is Black Panther woke? I want to say that Black Panther is woke, but not for the reasons you think it is.
Okay,
Yes.
fair enough. So woke because
Of the woman narrative and that kind of stuff.
really,
Yes.
human narrative. All right.
If you look at the movie of Black Panther, basically Black Panther kind of takes a backseat to whatever the women in his life tell him to do.
Okay, that
Um,
makes it woke.
Maybe not. Hold on.
That's fine.
Let me think, because you're right. Okay, so systemic injustice and that kind of stuff. They talk about America. They talk about that kind of stuff.
I mean, Killdozer, right?
yeah,
Was
Killdozer. No,
Was it?
Killmonger.
Oh, Killmonger.
Killdozer was the guy in the dozer, Joe.
Was he a Transformer?
He was not. No, that was the guy who soldered himself into a dozer and went on a spree. He was not in the Marvel universe. No.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
Yes.
Killmonger. Well, that was explicitly about systemic racism, I thought, or at least about colonial oppression. So how
Yeah.
could that not? I mean, if you're gonna define wokeness as what Ben Shapiro defined it as, it sounds like Black Panther was making a pretty strong
Yeah,
statement
sure.
about that, right?
Well, you give it. I mean,
Well, give it to me. Nice.
I don't.
Wrinkle in
in Time.
don't-
Yeah.
Was that woke? Why? Because Whoopi's in it? No, it
Wait.
wasn't Whoopi. It was.
I mean, maybe I
Sorry.
want the
I
time
never
to find
saw
the
this.
clip.
I never saw
I want
this,
the time
so.
to find the clip, but the clip is, I don't need a 30-year-old white guy sitting in a basement telling me about what a wrinkle in time didn't work for him.
So you're gonna tell him?
That
Okay,
clip.
we're not in a basement. We're in a roof
Yeah.
area. So maybe you can make it true.
But that clip, like I said, like when you you can have the directors and people come out and say stuff that will kind of help make things woke. The movie itself was just
that
downright
wasn't
terrible.
That wasn't in the movie. That was someone else.
That was Brie Larson talking about her role in the
Ah.
movie
Oh, she
and her
was-
complaining about white men. She doesn't want white men to watch her movies.
So even just people talking about their movies is
They
enough to
can.
make it woke. Wow. Okay.
Well,
Sure.
I'm
I'll buy it.
I'm going to give basically any of the Brie Larson movies the woke thing because
Fair enough. Because they.
It's kinda like-
the quartering waged a
kinda
jihad
like-
against her.
Donald Trump's just getting the fascist mark. It's Tomb
Brie
Raider.
Larson's getting. Yeah, and that's a good example. I think Tomb Raider is an interesting one because. Is it woke? I mean, Tomb Raider had a not as busty Tomb Raider. Was that woke? That they didn't show off her massive tits like they did Tifa, or they didn't do? Didn't that make Final
Not
Fantasy VII?
necessarily woke, not showing off the massive tits, but at the same time, because some people are ass men, so you can get around it.
Well, I don't know
but-
what her ass was like either. I don't remember. I don't even remember the movie very much. But
Like, okay, so compare. So you don't
Was she-
remember it very much. I'm having a hard time remembering a lot of it too.
Was
I'm
she
trying
a
to
Mary
compare it-
Sue?
Okay, contrast it from like the Laura Croft movie with Angelina Jolie. Obviously, the Angelina Jolie one was way more sexualized, but
you gotta admit that
Yeah.
one, right? I mean,
but this one definitely was way less sexualized. I don't know if that makes it woke because, like, I would buy that this lady. I don't know. Maybe
Would
they
you
want
buy
like an
it?
action
She's
star
pretty
instead of a
thin and-
booby lady.
Fair enough. I mean, those boobs have got to get in the way when you're jumping around everywhere. I mean, you gotta have a really good sports bra.
I want to say, honestly, I do want to say this one is actually closer to just being like the old movies, like Aeon Flux and stuff, where they just had a woman lead who, because like Kate Beckinsale wasn't necessarily a big titty.
Nope,
She was
wasn't.
attractive,
But
of
she was
course,
wearing
but-
leather.
yeah.
She was wearing tight ass clothes. No, I completely understand what you're going from with this. And I think the only reason why I included it is because I feel like a lot of movies that are called woke are movies where they do sort of a reimagining or modernizing a character that was either sexualized or, I don't know, not feminized, what's the word? Because of their... So, like, the Tomb Raider character, like Tifa, for example, was updated and to be a little bit less of a male-gazy character. And, I don't know, the movie... I don't remember anything inside of it being, like, I don't know. But was she a Mary Sue? Did she struggle? Like, because I know you complained before about Brie Larson not having to struggle and stuff. I
remember her struggling. Got her ass kicked a couple times in the movie.
It's all right. That's fine. No,
let's see.
Overboard.
I have no idea what that movie was.
Okay, I include this one because I googled gender swap films.
Okay.
So this is a gender swap film, which honestly we saw recently. I saw not this film, but the original one. It's with Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell.
Oh, that one, yeah.
Yes. So they redid. I didn't even know they redid it. Honestly,
the one where the meme comes from of him like out the window.
Oh, is that? I don't know. But anyway, this is when they just swap it. Now the Goldie Hawn character is a man and Kurt Russell character is a woman and whatever. I
swap it that way. Oh,
yeah.
I thought you meant like they just made them black or something.
No, it's just gender swapped. So it's because there was, I think, originally some criticism that the Goldie Hawn character was too.
Didn't want to be damsel in distress.
No, I think she was
Something
like
like
a
that, or-
bitch. I think.
Huh.
I think, or maybe it was weird that she was, because what happened was she had head trauma, amnesia, so they just sort of like adopted her and made her into his wife.
Okay.
A little bit questionable nowadays, but maybe it makes it less questionable when it's a woman doing it to a man. I don't know.
I mean, a little bit, but what do you think?
Just because it's race or gender swapped doesn't make it bad, good.
I mean, did they do it because of systemic? You think because of woman stuff? Like you think
know.
they did it because they thought like we can't show a woman,
They have
this
to
is
do
too
it.
rapey?
You could just not have done that
know.
movie ever. I mean, who cares?
I'll just say yes.
All right.
Why
so
not?
yes, I don't know.
Solo. Oh God.
It's a Solo one. I wasn't sure to add this
now
one.
I really
added
gotta
this one
think about Solo.
last minute. No, I'll tell you why I added this one. Only for one reason. Woke droid. That's the only reason why I added it.
They had the protest droid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, does that make
SJW? That
Yes.
phrase I haven't heard in a while.
Is that okay? We didn't mention this, but again, going back to Ghostbusters, I really think woke is just an evolution of SJW as a phrase.
Oh yeah.
It's just the same thing. SJW was a phrase people just used to denigrate people, basically, or to claim they're sort of, not unresponsible, but they weren't like meaningfully trying to change the world. They were just speaking out, kind of like virtue signaling was
You ever
used.
hear- You ever hear the phrase? A phrase I've been hearing actually on the left recently was "cry bully."
Oh,
You ever heard
not
that?
really, not so
No?
much. Maybe once or twice. Is it like
It's-
woke school? No, it's something different, right?
Maybe someone. No, woke scold I think is more about. I think cry bully is more kind of the idea that it's using like you doing something bad to kind of try to change your behavior or whatever. I think that was maybe with the because the SJW thing is kind of I think was pointing out people saying what you're trying to be a.
So like the Me Too movement sort of thing. Is that the whole thing supposed to be kind of a?
Well, it's about trying to what I think what people feel like is the SJWs are this group of people paints people with a broad brush, and a lot of people feel like they get targeted by saying that you're responsible for things that
So
they're
people
not.
feel
Right?
attacked,
Yeah,
and then they
Because-
feel that they need to be changed because they're attacked.
Well, because I mean, when you use a phrase like whiteness, it's kind of hard, right? Like if we use the
Ooh,
phrase,
that's a
if we
whole other
use-
conversation.
Yeah, if we use the phrase blackness to describe crime, I think we'd have a lot of problems. But so
We would.
Solo, I'm gonna say yes then because that droid. There is
Pretty
women
damn-
dynamic stuff with Han Solo in that movie too, and just the women, and stuff like that.
Solo.
Sure, yeah. So then we'll
okay.
move on to Ocean's 8. Yeah,
the
I
classic-
don't think we need to talk about that.
I get though. Did you see the movie? I think I saw it, and I don't
It
remember.
was terrible.
Yes, it was bad, but was it actually anything about them being women? Because I mean, from what I remember, I think I watched on an airplane or something. So
Do
I
you
might have
remember,
missed
though?
some parts, but I thought
Yeah.
it was just the same movie, but just with women. But they didn't like make it. Oh, this is about female liberation. It was just.
They did an Ocean's, a sequel to the Ocean's movie, right? Not the first one, because I think the first one was all men. Actually, there may have been a woman in it.
there?
But in the sequel,
never
there was
mind.
definitely a woman in their crew, and it's like one of these things where
Sexy lady, right?
why not just add a guy? It's like you don't have to do the whole.
Well, weren't there some men involved? It wasn't like I mean, I don't know. I don't remember.
Another thing too, we missed out on a lot of these kind of things too. Is something that's been happening over a big theme is that the kind of what we see in the kind of the zeitgeist is the villains change kind of to reflect society, right? I mean, if you look back to movies in the 90s, maybe see like a lot of like, Eastern European or whatever. Yeah. In the 2000s, you have to see a lot of Middle Easterners as villains and stuff, kind of stuff. Now, you definitely see a lot of white men and stuff like that because I think it's to reflect the time. But that, I think, does add into some of the wokeness in some of these things, too, where I miss it, but the villains of these kind of things are just so...
You know my favorite villain change was? I think it was a late 2000 knots or whatever, or was it not? It was the fifth Die Hard movie.
Oh, God.
With the nerd villain. I love when they had, like, the dorky, like, Steve Jobs villains. That's my favorite villain swap because they're the least threatening of all the villain types. But yet there was a good swap of them. The new Jurassic Park movie had that.
If you do it like the Sam Jackson in the not the Watchmen, the Kingsman.
Yeah.
He was kind of like one of those guys.
Yeah,
it kind of worked, right? Yeah, he was weird.
Yeah, but just having like a Steve Jobs lookalike, and that's not threatening. But anyway, sorry.
Incredibles 2? I don't remember that being... Well...
We never saw Incredibles 2?
I did. But... That was the animated one, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
There was a non-animated?
No, not that. But I just want to make sure I'm talking about the same movie.
With that Bajoka dunk?
Yeah, the Incredibles was a movie I remember hearing a lot of people talk about. The first one was really good. The second one, I think it's a lot of love too. The only thing you could say is woke about it was they do the swap of the parents and that kind of stuff of their roles. But I think in that movie, it definitely feels more earnest of an opinion of like just actually trying to show, two different sides of, because that is an interesting story to do of like a story about what happens when Superman's not Superman, right? What happens if there's another Superman that came along and how would he deal with being sad, or stuff like that, which is, and I didn't necessarily see any like race stuff in it or any.
All right. Sure, that's fine. If you don't think, I'm just. Oh, didn't type. I just added because I think there was a conversation about it being woke. That's the only reason why.
Black Klansman. We'll probably assume that is. I didn't see it. Did you?
I saw it. Yeah.
How was it?
It's good. But it was super woke. There's a whole part in the end where they do a bunch of footage of Black Lives Matter protests. Like at the very last 5 minutes of it, because that was I think it was a really good movie, being my but because it was about the KKK, but it's about David Duke in particular, and then there's a whole part at the very end where he says, because the movie takes place in the 70s, and like I mentioned, these other movies where they do sort of racism ends at the end of the movie. He explicitly says, no, look, David Duke is still around today, and he's still saying the same shit that he said back in the 70s when he was the leader of the Klan. So it's trying to create a through line to say the movie racism didn't end. It's just changed, or it's just, slightly different, but it's still out there.
That sounds a little bit more tastefully done than how they did it in The Woman King.
Oh, is that on there?
At the end of The Woman King,
I gotta add Woman King on there. Maybe
it was an end credit scene too, Joe. It was them sitting around a fire, and then they were just listing off the names of the black women who've been killed by police in like our current year. And I'm like, I don't think they would know those names.
Add the Woman King on there. See if it's on there for the list. The all movies one. I don't know if it is or not. Just search it. Control F.
Control F.
Yeah, Woman.
I think it's The Woman.
You could just search Woman. It is on there. Well, God, bring that bad boy on the list. I didn't even think of that one.
It might be on here. We did it alphabetic
I don't think I added that one. I don't remember adding it. So
Black Widow. No,
I don't think I did.
I'm gonna put it at the bottom though. So.
Just right there.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, so where are we?
Yeah, sorry.
Black Klansman. Yeah. If Beale Street could talk.
That's the one that was the James Baldwin movie. That's specifically about like Harlem and.
I'll let you decide. I don't know.
I didn't see it. I'm only assuming it's woke because it's a James Baldwin novel. James Baldwin was one of like the main thinkers of like anti-racism and stuff back in the 60s and 70s. So,
What Men Want, parody of not parody. Remember when they used to have parodies?
Yeah, they did do What Men Want, didn't they already before this?
Oh, before that? Okay.
Isn't this a remake of it, or am I completely wrong? And this is the first one.
Because basically, it was the one about kind of being like what women want, right? But
yes.
You could listen to men's thoughts.
But this is a woman.
I didn't see it though. I imagine I could definitely see this movie being extremely woke if all the things were like rude, even though.
Or it could also be super not woke if it's all just men just being like, I want my pussy.
Well, that would be woke.
That would be woke if
yes,
they just
that would be because if you remember What Women Want, that movie was about him realizing that men and women have a lot of things in common.
Okay.
And it wasn't really about the
then,
fact
the,
that
then the movie could be about women realizing they also just
It
want
could.
dick or
It could.
something.
That's why I don't know.
It'd be funny if it was like what men want, and she's just all men are just thinking like really high thought, like the philosophies of
Yeah.
Aristotle. I need to think about Socrates a little, and that's all she hears.
Oh, these men thinking about Warhammer. It's so stupid.
The Socratic method versus the
Triangles.
the
I'm gonna go home and try to make the perfect triangle.
yes Pythagorean. Anyway, sorry. So who knows? Maybe not.
Whatever. I'll just give it.
Yes, all right. Whatever.
Captain Marvel. I'll give it.
Need not say. Yep.
We already made the rule Brie Larson movie. We should have included all of them. Us. I mean,
Every Brie Larson movie does. Oh, sorry, that's Us. Yeah, Us is that's a Jordan Peele movie, I think.
that was the one
Didn't
of
see it,
the
though.
Hands Across America one,
I don't know.
or that was the one
It's the one I thought where they're like kind of.
the black people get their bodies taken over.
Yes,
That was a different one.
No, that's something about them being replaced. The parents were replaced or something.
Well, because
And about a black family.
the other movie he made too
Hands Across America. Which one's
was
that?
about that as well.
Well,
So,
you mean
okay.
Get Out? Yes, Get
Oh.
Out was about that too. Kind
Oh,
of.
Get Out was the first one, right?
Yes, that was the
Okay,
first
so
one.
this is the one about okay. So he's got M'Baku's got his family, and
Yeah,
the
that's it,
the
yeah.
stories about apparently they've made clones of everybody in the
like
United
that.
States that
Us.
comes out and like
Spoilers.
yeah, well,
Spoilers
it's
for us.
2019, baby. You missed your
I didn't
chance.
see it, damn it. But whatever. I mean, is it woke? I don't
what
know.
Woke stuff about it. Like the next family next door was a white couple, and they slaughtered them, to show a lot of violence against white people. But it wasn't necessarily like it wasn't woke because it didn't seem like that was a major point, because like if they want to show them killing white people, that would be woke. But just because they're white, like I don't know.
Hey, it's fine.
And it's Tim Heidecker. It's fine to kill him. Yeah, he was the damn
He was the bad guy. No,
Yeah.
okay. I don't. So then say no if you don't think it's woke.
okay.
Hey, this is most. I want.
Maybe Get Out. I would
want to
maybe
convince
call.
you, but I think Get Out was 2015 or something, so
Yeah.
it's not on this list.
I want you to convince me. Come on.
No, I don't want to convince you necessarily now. I want to get your
Oh.
opinion first.
The
and
Hustle.
Then another,
That's not American Hustle, right?
No, this is another gender swap film. It's got Rebel Wilson and someone else, and it's The Rotten Dirty Scoundrels is the original, and they just did it with women. I don't know. I didn't see it. I have
Whatever.
no idea. Okay. Aladdin. Is Aladdin woke? I have no idea.
I'm gonna say no because I don't actually remember them actually. Because this was
Got a black
2019.
genie.
I followed a lot of. Yeah, no, even
Not
Will
even-
Smith. Will Smith is not even like any race. He's got a pass almost for everything. I think.
Yeah, but he was in was it
Not anymore since he slapped Chris
yeah,
Rock.
whatever.
but
Okay, if it's not woke, then that's fine. Yeah. Hey, what'd you say, man?
Men in Black International. Ooh, I actually did remember seeing this
That's
one.
a good one, right? We're getting into the good ones. 2019 was a good year for woke, or for whatever, or for bad remakes.
That was a bad movie though.
Oh, it was a bad movie. Oh boy. It's a movie that I remember
Woke
nothing
stuff.
about. Absolutely nothing. I think it went all over my head.
I remember.
It's a good airplane film, though. If you're in an airplane, you
Yeah.
can kill some time.
I remember like maybe the wokest thing about it was that the girl kind of took the lead, right?
So
Wasn't that
isn't
most
that
of the
another
movie?
kind of film where they're replacing the traditional masculine male character with a woman? I don't know.
But that's the thing is, women can take the lead. They can do that kind of stuff.
Without
The
being
question
woke?
is, does it feel like is it happening to solve systemic, that kind of stuff?
Good question.
That's a tough.
What would it require for you to know if it was? If the director said, I cast her because I wanted to, I don't know, because I think women need to have leading roles in films? Would that make it woke if that was the case? I don't know.
If like the director said, I want to make sure we had the first color girl lead in a Men in the Black movie, would be like, all right, why?
It's interesting. This is it's also had what's his face? No, it didn't have. Which Hemsworth was in this?
That was one of Hemsworth, yeah.
Yeah,
right?
but it was a different Hemsworth, right? It wasn't
Yeah.
the one from Ghostbusters. Was it? Whatever. It was a Hemsworth. Doesn't matter. But they both played this.
But I don't remember any like politics. I don't know.
So maybe no then. That's fine.
Yeah, whatever.
Just say maybe no. Whatever you want to do.
I know. I think we got off the data screen here for a little bit, but I keep cutting back and forth with myself
okay,
sometimes.
okay.
Jojo Rabbit. I want to say no.
All right.
I didn't think that movie was very woke because any movie that tries to humanize any kind of Nazi is probably not woke.
Terminator. Dark. Okay. This
I
is.
mean, I'm actually almost surprised that they let him make Jojo Rabbit, but Terminator Dark Fate, that movie
This one I
definitely
wanna-
had a lot of woke conversation about it.
This is what I want to talk about a little more in detail because I looked up a little bit about this. So whatever you say, whatever you want. You say yes, okay. Because I was looking up what was the backlash about this film because I saw the film and I was, I don't think it was any worse than the other Terminator remakes. I mean,
They made a lot of a couple
Yeah.
bad Terminator movies, so it's okay.
because I'm thinking of like, what's that one with he's walking out with the coffin? Is that the third or fourth one with the
Third one.
What was the
Yeah.
one with the woman had the
That was the
machine guns
third
in her
one,
tits?
yeah. Where the cop holds her over, she goes, whoop.
Oh
and then
my
her
god,
boobs
yeah.
grow,
So I'm thinking like,
the Terminator, instead of killing the guy, would make her boobs
in
grow.
comparison, like I think that movie grossed much better at the box office. The other sequels, this one did the worst of all the Terminator films. Now, question is why? There was an interview with the director, and he said something to the effect of, I didn't listen to the fan base or something like that. Or he said something to the effect of, I thought if I just made a film that I thought was good, the fans would like it, as
Yeah.
opposed to looking, considering what the fans
Okay.
were interested in. So I think this movie particularly might bring, bring everything together in the sense of, is wokeness, or is Go Woke, Go Broke more about fan reactions to films? So the fans really didn't like Terminator Dark Fate.
No.
For a lot of reasons, I think, but particularly because how they treated what's his face, John Connor, right?
Edward Furlong?
Was that the actor's
That
name?
was the kid.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Shoot him down in the first couple
Yeah,
seconds.
so
of the
they
movie.
really upset, but I don't remember much political things in this movie. Right?
Well,
You?
they did make sure to talk about the border, illegal immigrants, and that kind of stuff in the beginning
All
of the
right.
movie.
Yeah, there was an
Yeah.
immigration thing. Okay, I
Because
get that.
it's like
But is that what made the movie bad
woke,
or woke?
or
Or,
make
yeah.
the movie woke. Okay, so maybe you got the immigration stuff
You had
going
a
on
strong
there.
female lead character, two of them, I think. Right?
Strong female lead character, kind of. You had, I think the biggest sins are maybe the disposability of the male characters.
She was a Brie Larson lookalike, I think, wasn't she?
But the problem is with her though is that they actually gave her like weaknesses and stuff, and she
Yeah.
wasn't just an unstoppable
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely.
So she was a real person though. I think the bigger problem is
Oh,
with
she was a
the-
robot.
Well, I know,
I know.
I know. She was more of a person.
She was
more than a.
yes,
oh.
yes. I agree with you that it felt like a regular Terminator movie in that sense.
Some of the
but-
stuff that really got to people was the Sarah Connor stuff, that how they changed her character
Right,
and
so three
what they did
strong
with
female
what they did with Danny as well, the new woman who,
Yeah, yes.
because the woke stuff they kind of got from that was getting rid of the downgrading motherhood, kind of, where in those movies it was because she was going to give birth to the guy who whatever was going to lead them into, and so the woke part. I mean, maybe they just want to do like a twist, but the woke part would be that it's not about the baby you're gonna have; it's about you. Where all these movies have been about protecting, like the future of somebody, and I don't know, like that.
feels a little bit like a stretch, though. Doesn't
It could be.
I
Yeah.
feel like this is again using this as a jumping point. Perhaps Dark Fate was an example of fan base upset about a movie that didn't live up to their expectations, and maybe finding things that were woke about not to like. Perhaps, or I mean, I think it wasn't a great movie, but in comparison to the other Terminator films, I mean, excluding 1 and 2, obviously, I don't feel like it was that bad to warrant the hate it gets.
Well, this is where you get the crossover with just the upset fans, right? With the
Yes.
you're changing. Exactly. I think they start the movie with killing. The
Yeah.
whole point of like
Very beginning,
yeah, of course you're gonna piss off people anyway. But I mean, I think that, like you're saying, if we're also, I mean, I also have to consider the general consensus. There's so many woke videos made about it. I would consider it.
There were quite a bit, weren't there? All right.
Now, is it actually woke? I mean, there could be actually a good argument that's not, but it does have some woke things in it. So, but
right.
we'll leave it yes.
Sure, yeah, okay.
Harriet, I want to just say that's woke, but I heard from a YouTuber that there is that the movie's bullshit because they gave Harriet Tubman superpowers. They did?
I didn't see it, but
Oh.
I was also trying to just research because some of these things I checked about them. I'll tell you in a second after you finish. But yeah, I think Harriet, they did do some ridiculousness to her character.
She got like a head trauma or whatever, which would be hard to let her see into the future, which is like,
But
What?
is it woke? Is it? It's about black people.
did they give her a relationship with a white man?
I don't know. Did they?
I thought maybe they did.
Maybe it's not woke then. I
But I
just add to
I
the
was
list
going
because
to
it's
say probably because it's about race.
It is certainly about slavery, isn't
yeah.
it? Yeah.
And I would be very dubious if somebody these days could make a movie about racism
woke?
and slavery without without the wokeism getting in there.
All right. Fair enough.
Charlie's Angels definitely woke.
Yeah.
The director said enough
Do
stuff.
I even say about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Rise of Skywalker, the
Ooh,
last
good question.
ooh.
Yeah. See, I wasn't sure about this one either. But I
Because
just added to the list.
J.J. Abrams was stuck with her, with everything that was done in that movie.
See, I have yet to see the film actually. Still,
No.
I've yet to see it. I want to watch it one of these days, but I know it was awful. I've heard it was awful at least. Now, why was it? Because I don't know.
Honestly,
Did-
Honestly, woke. Okay, we're talking about them trying to fix things because of like systemic whatevers and hoo-has, right? Women's stuff, right? Like women's stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't really. Okay, there's strong female characters, but compared to the last movie, they definitely toned her down.
They killed a man.
I mean, of course, they kill a lot of men.
Did they bring him back alive?
Um,
Spoilers for
Adam Driver? No, he stayed dead once he died.
Stayed dead. Oh, okay.
They did this gay shit, yo. Oh my god, I'm sorry. But okay, no, they did. What? It doesn't matter. They did this stuff where
edit your own moves. Yeah.
I won't. But they made a new force power where you can heal people.
Yeah, I heard about
And so he used his. Oh no. She died, so he used his force power to heal her. But then she didn't have enough force mana left to heal him, so he
told me that ain't woke.
No, that's stupid. That's just stupid. Now, okay, so the woke stuff, like race, I don't recall there being any race stuff in it. Like, okay, in the second one, you had the Canto Bite stuff with them trying to do
that
like
wasn't about
capitalism.
Race. That was
stuff.
about that was just about inequality.
I don't remember any systemic stuff. I want to kind of say no. I want to say the movie was just bad. I don't really.
All right, fair enough. Hey,
I don't.
Sure, say no.
I don't think that one was woke.
Why do you keep on clicking there for?
Because I click on the other thing to show my face every now and again.
How many more we got?
We're close
not
to the
too
end.
much, yep.
Like a Boss. I have no idea. It's up to you. You know anything about the movie?
I think that's another gender. If you click on the thing, you can click on the link and you can see what actually that movie is. Because I don't remember either. I never saw it.
Tiffany Haddish.
Cosmetic company. Is it like Devils Wear Prada? I think it's like a Devils Wear Prada. I don't know. I have no idea. I think I added it just because I googled top 10 woke movies. It was on the list. So say no. Yeah.
Birds of Prey. I'll say yeah.
That's pretty obvious. Wonder Woman,
1984. Wonder Woman, 1984.
I think Wonder Woman, the original one, came out before 2016, right? So that's not on the list. But I think I would have added it to the list.
Oh my God!
It's red stuff.
Oh, it's probably from the fridge. It's probably the chili.
Oh.
Whatever. Anyway,
Like a chili.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
old chili. Anyway, Wonder Woman, 1984. Ay Dios mío, that was. I almost was thinking about the original one, but that movie was terrible. So, that movie was woke.
Okay.
For all the wrong reasons too.
Because did they talk about women stuff in that one? It was something about. Wasn't it one of the characters wanted to be pretty? That doesn't sound very woke to me.
She wanted to be
Powerful.
Yeah.
She wanted superpowers.
She wanted to have like power over people, and part of that was being. That's why she turned into the cheetah thing. Because if she wanted to be pretty, she would have stayed pretty the whole time because it gave you
But
more
it
and
made
more.
her hot when she had powers, isn't that?
Pedro Pascal's character was supposed to be like a parody of Trump.
Oh, it was?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's pretty like.
Did I even see that movie? I guess not.
It was a pretty bad movie. The problem is too they basically do something to a man in that movie that they bend over backwards to
that
not
part.
do to
Yeah.
women, like you just said about the shipwrecked one or whatever. They just like basically
Yeah.
date rape a guy for the whole movie long
Yeah,
and don't give a
yeah.
shit about it.
Yes, I do remember that now.
it's
That
because it's a
conversation
dude.
at least.
It's fun.
Yes. Yeah. All right, sure.
Judas
Well,
the Black Messiah, no idea. I would assume probably.
It's about Black Panthers.
Yeah.
Would you just buy that very nation? It's like, oh,
Do you remember there was a
supposed to
movie
be
that
good. I didn't see it.
I
though,
remember
so.
seeing ads for a movie. I don't know when it came out, but there's a movie it was supposed to be about a black couple who were like on the run and just killed cops or something. I'm like, that must have been a woke movie,
That sounds,
but
yeah, I don't know that one.
I'm gonna say
Mortal Kombat.
no for Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat. Okay.
I don't remember that being woke.
I
Black
think the
Widow.
reason why it was woke, or the Congress people might have accused it being woke, because they had a black version of one of the characters or something like
I
that.
thought the black guy did have the arms. I thought that was.
Did they do
Was there another black guy?
Or maybe they killed off Johnny Cage really early, or something. They
Johnny
did.
Cage
I thought.
wasn't even in the movie.
I don't know.
He was teased for the
I thought
next.
there was something that they did in the movie that people were pissed off
They
about. but
created
maybe
a
not.
new character. They hated that.
Maybe that was what it was. Maybe. Whatever. It doesn't matter. If you, I don't know if it was woke. I don't think so. Black Widow.
Well, like I said, that one was definitely made for more of a foreign market too. So I have a feeling.
Oh.
I don't know.
Well.
If they can include, well, whatever.
Yeah.
Black Widow. The whole movie was about women and basically about like sexism. So I guess I would say yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I never saw that either. Time to die.
Just because of Lashana Lynch, is she the Black Brie Larson?
I don't know. I never saw this one either, so I just remember there was a lot of bitching and moaning about her, but
I didn't
is
see
it
it
woke?
either, but I'm willing to say yes because of how much woke videos were made on YouTube about it.
So, but then that goes with my definition that woke is just what people are saying is woke.
Well, I'm trying
But what do you think?
because I have no information about this movie because
Oh.
I never saw it. So I'm
Okay.
trying to
Just guess.
give it somewhat
so
even.
Other people said it was woke, so maybe it is. All right.
Maybe Resurrections.
Matrix Resurrection.
I
Was that
want to say
woke?
no.
That was bad, but was it? Or it did badly. I don't know. I didn't watch it, but it was. Is it another trans allegory? But does that make it woke? I don't know. Probably not. But.
No, I don't think. Okay, so what would make it woke with the trans thing, like the trans allegory, I guess is fine.
We're supposed to be all the movies,
Especially
actually,
because these are like adult movies. You know, if you put it like a kids Disney movie, yeah, that'd be an issue, more of an issue of a woke thing. But that and like if they like in the new Doctor Who thing where they're casting like specifically, I think a trans person to play a woman or something like that would make it more woke. Okay. I think what they did in the Matrix Resurrection movie, I don't remember it being.
Okay. Sure. I mean,
Yeah.
could be right. I didn't actually see
I
that
mean,
one
because
either.
actually, for like the Matrix movie, I would actually be more likely to put the Matrix movie as woke than this because the Matrix movie they would kind of delve into the ideas of like society and maybe capitalism a little bit and that kind of stuff. Okay. This movie was really all about the self.
Is anti-capitalism wokeness?
To an extent, yeah.
So would Parasite be woke?
I thought about that.
I mean, I didn't include it obviously because it's not an American film, but I just think it's
Parasite
thinking right
be
now.
woke.
How about systemic oppression, isn't it?
You can critique things, right, without it necessarily being too far, right?
Can you?
Like kind of from the other direction if you want to compare it to race. Like you can talk about race and do things without it being racist, right? Because there's a line.
No, about being racist?
somewhere,
No, about
yeah.
being woke, you mean?
No, I mean like for race or for racism, like you can make jokes about race that aren't racist, but there's a line where they become racist, right? And I think that there's a line somewhere.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. I'm not sure about that, but I think the question was more like, can you make a movie about race nowadays and that isn't considered woke?
I mean,
Is that possible?
Be very tough because the way that the way it seems like they're allowed to talk about things, and the way that certain things are not allowed to talk about. Like, for example, if they're going to talk about race, they're usually not going to do it in a position where they blame the black people for their problems. They're going to blame it on just whatever.
I'm sure there's a movie out there somewhere, but
They made a lot of those in the
'90s.
90s.
Yeah, they probably.
Stand By Me, that or whatever. They made. About Morgan Freeman as the principal.
Yeah,
and
that
they
movie.
They made a lot of movies like that back then.
Yeah, they did make some movies about that. What about just he's got to buckle up and do stuff, all right?
Yeah, well, like the world's gonna come at you no matter what, buddy. It's up to you, not the world, you know. But Jurassic World Dominion, we're gonna take a break after we're done with this for a second.
Yes, pee. Almost done. Yeah, I got to pee too. I've been holding it in for
Jurassic World Dominion.
Is that woke or not? Oh, I don't
That was
know.
the newest one, right?
Yeah, that was the newest one. Did I include the one before
guess.
that? What year was that? 2022, right? Wait a minute. Oh.
No,
No.
I don't recall anything really woke happening in that movie. Thor: Love and Thunder, yes.
That was woke. All right. Okay. Didn't see that either.
I want to make sure because that movie was terrible, and I don't want to just say it was woke because it was terrible.
Oh, good. Oh, you're
that
catching
movie
yourself.
That movie was just so bad. But woke.
Was it bad because of the wokeness, or was it just bad because it was bad and it might have had a woke thing here or there inside of it?
Yeah, I'm gonna say yeah.
All right, fair.
I could probably make an argument.
Go with your first.
A better argument. Amsterdam, I didn't see, but I heard a lot of people say it was woke because it was supposed to be about. Do you have any idea?
I mean, it's on the list because I thought I heard people talk about it too, but whatever.
So I wouldn't say that because word of mouth. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Yep. Woke. I mean, I'm willing to give you Strange World just because it's like the newest thing I've heard about.
Everyone's been bitching and moaning about it.
And The Woman King.
All right, fair
All
enough.
right.
Could take a break for a second.
Oh
and
yeah,
we'll
well,
go.
so this is the list,
That's your list.
and of the woke movies, we're gonna be going over mine next, and we'll take a quick break. We're gonna get back into it now. We've got my list of movies we're gonna go over. We're gonna see how many of these are woke, and
Most are not woke.
then well, I don't think he'll probably argue with any of these. Deadpool,
Yeah.
I don't think that was woke. Batman vs Superman. The good thing this isn't a list of what's good and bad.
These are like these so far are like the opposite of the woke one so far.
Yeah, I mean this is why they
Captain
probably stood out to me.
America. Which
That's
one's that? Winter
Civil
Soldier?
War.
Oh, Civil War.
Not woke.
No,
I wouldn't say there was.
I don't think so.
Max Steel, I remember just being a stupid basic movie.
No, that's dumb.
Bad Santa 2?
I don't remember that at all. The one with
I
Billy
did
Bob?
see Bad Santa
Billy
2.
Bob.
And the weird thing about Bad Santa 2 was it tried to be like a copy of Bad Santa 1, you know? And it's like, man, so they kind of like undid all the things he learned in the first movie, you know? It's like, you think he'd be a better person because the whole thing about the first movie was him like,
But he was bad, Nick.
I know.
He was a bad Santa.
but no, I don't remember that movie being very
Santa's
woke.
dumb.
It was kind of,
Underworld.
I don't think any
No.
Underworld movie could be.
If only.
Fate of the Furious. Do you think, can a Fast and the Furious movie be woke?
It could be heartfelt. No, I don't think so. Tyrese. I think Tyrese destroys any woke.
It's about family.
If they made a Fast and Furious movie where it just like a Tyrese what's the word not rejuvenation, but what's the word? Like he becomes like, because he's always been like the laughingstock character for a lot of the movies.
He becomes the villain at the end of it all.
Maybe that, but I was thinking more like it gives him a chance to like confront. He's like, oh, I've been so goofy because of my inner trauma and stuff.
Because I was molested as a child.
Yeah, something like that, you know, like
come up
something
against
terrible like that, and then all of a sudden it's just you can see his past goofiness.
You want real drama in your Furious movie?
I want to be fast and crying furiously.
You want to be those cars flying while you're crying?
Yeah, definitely.
No.
For Justice
League, I don't remember.
No.
You weren't expecting Sherlock. No.
What was it? Johnny Depp. I mean, he beat women, so.
Avengers: Infinity War. Nope, I don't remember it. That wasn't woke.
Was it? No, I don't think so.
Solo. I think we agreed that.
Solo, we said
was
it was, right?
Yeah.
I think you said yes, but.
So we take. Well,
Yeah,
Sicario.
I just
No,
but I don't think
Sicario was good.
That was with Brie Larson, though, wasn't it?
No, that's Emily Blunt.
Emily
I think.
Blunt. Okay, sorry.
More masculine Brie Larson, I guess. Endgame. Now Brie Larson wasn't Endgame. Oh boy.
I think by your own definitions, you gotta call it woke.
I mean, they did have the A-Force scene too. That's pretty. But then, how much of the movie needs to be woke for it to be considered woke, right? Because other than that scene, and if we're considering anything with Brie Larson, was there anything else woke in the movie?
Endgames? No.
Right?
It's not really woke. I don't think so. Brie Larson, just because she's in something, does not make it woke. That's so stupid.
You know the behind the scenes that they cut her out of a lot of the movie.
Why?
Why? Because they got fan backlash because of her.
They got scared.
Tolkien, no. I don't even know what the point of my list is, other than
Joker's so not woke, it's woke, maybe.
yeah, I know, right?
Is that one? Jojo Rabbit? We said no. Okay.
Yep. Motherless Brooklyn,
I don't
no.
even know what that is.
That was a crime movie.
The Informer? Never heard of that. Oh my god, that movie is bad.
Yeah, I just picked a bunch of ones that I definitely would assume aren't more.
No,
Brahms the boy too.
Can't
That wasn't
see.
woke.
Is that the one with what's his face?
Vin Diesel is a
Vin
superhero.
Diesel? No, that can't be woke.
Definitely wasn't woke. That was wow, that movie.
I don't remember that at all. I must have seen
If
it.
you ever get the chance, watch that movie just because that movie was so like high budget. Like the graphic, like the stuff looked good.
They spent on it $45 million, the same as
Paws of Fury.
Okay.
But it's
Wait,
still
Paws
it's
of
like
Fury, not woke?
You're like watching blood. You're right. Hold on, I have to look at it.
Clearly must be. Just,
Not Bloodshot. We already know what
it's
you are.
got
You're
Only
garbage.
cats are the good guys and the dogs are all bad. I have no idea. I think the other way around. I think the cats. It looks so bad.
I don't know. Usually though, when they do kung fu stuff, and that's usually not woke because that's kind of seen as Did anything come up with woke? I don't think so. Look at that.
Oh, you
Kid
didn't
in
mind
mind.
it? No, it's not. It can't be.
It can't be woke.
I mean, it could be woke, but
Review. Paws of Fury is sad, declawed, blazing saddles.
what is that possible? No way.
It's the kid version of Blazing.
Oh, it is. It is a Blazing Saddles remake.
So,
You're right.
that's
Still
definitely not woke.
though. Yeah. Well, I read an article how Blazing Saddles was woke actually.
For its time, maybe. I mean, I guess.
Maybe even
Okay,
today.
so the thing is,
Oh, no.
when they're doing a joke like "Where all the white women at,"
Yep.
it's making a joke.
About the stereotype.
Yes, about the stereotype, right? So it's not really. I don't know. It's kind of. I
It's
guess,
like most of the
Yeah.
not anti-Semitic ones, but the Jewish jokes they do in a lot of those movies aren't supposed to be like,
making fun of the Jews.
"Oy vey, this is how the Jewish people really are." It's like
a joke of the stereotype. Yeah.
Yeah, like they always gotta be like sellers.
Because it's like, I mean, that's part of the joke of like, because it's like people really believe this shit, like some of the crazy stereotypes. But Avatar: The Way of Water, that movie definitely wasn't woke.
Nope.
That was the movie that came out this year. Actually, where's
It's December. That's the December one.
what happened
Original
to
one? What?
what's it called, Maverick? Top Gun.
That's this year, I think, wasn't it?
That was this year. Okay, because that movie definitely wasn't woke, and that movie did
Might have
gangbusters.
been last year. I don't know.
That was last
But
year.
It might be in the other list. So you might as well just get rid of the one that does the solo one, because everything
Yeah.
else is woke, right? Or
Oh,
not woke. Sorry. Just delete the whole row, or column, or whatever it's called.
Delete.
Yeah, there you go. So everything else.
Alright.
So now you can just do if you want to try to just do the averages of this stuff, it's pretty easy to do, right? So basically,
Because what we're looking at, I think, is that there's a couple big movies that
Absolutely,
took up
yeah.
most of the budget.
that's what median does.
Yeah.
Median shows you if there's like how the difference between the mean and the median is so drastic here. That means there's like either some really, really bad ones and really, really good ones on the top and the bottom.
Yeah.
And there's really no, and the middle is more spread out. But the average puts it up a little bit higher in the top because there's too much. I guess the Avatar movies, you know, whatever. I don't know
Avatar, the Endgame movies,
yeah,
your
these
Infinity
ones, that
Wars.
one. Yeah, they overrepresented. So we did this. So this is the ones you suggested.
Yeah.
That there. Okay, that there. That's fine. That's pretty good actually. 4% or 4 times is really high. So let's
Projected
go.
over, yeah.
Let's go back to what I did and find out these ones, but all the movies. Let's go there first. Oh, too far. So I already have done all this stuff. So how do I reveal? Show.
Revelio.
Reveal. No, where is? Oh, here. I have to click on that.
Is it
sorry.
insert
Yeah,
or no
just click
tools or
on that
something?
thing. Alright, so I already did that for these. Let's do, yeah, okay, that's the whole row. So this is the average. So for all those movies,
Yep.
3.2 and 1.5, and the median is here too. And so the median is actually more
Pretty
consistent with
similar.
this one right here, right? Yeah, the median is almost
2.1.
exact. So I think median might be more,
A little bit higher, yeah.
might be more interesting or more important to look at. Let's also look here. The average there is about right, but the domestic one, maybe you just pick movies that happen to have. So. now we'll go
Well,
here.
the thing is too is the movies that you're immediately gonna pick out are movies that you know, and those are probably gonna be ones that made more money than movies that didn't.
That's the thing. That's why
Right.
when I think of Go Woke, Go Broke, one of my ideas behind it is that it should a
be-
reactionary response. So if a movie does bad, people can sometimes say, "Oh, it's because it was woke, therefore that's why it was bad." So it's gonna have a selection bias.
And it can also
You're not gonna look at good movies and say why they do good because
yeah.
they're woke.
Well, it can also be
Maybe.
since it's also a reaction. You know, sometimes it's one of those things that's not going to like. I think The Last Jedi is a clear example where it's woke, but people didn't have a chance not to see it because they had to see it to know it was woke. You know what I mean? Where that was like you get those kind of things to happen.
Yeah.
And then once that happens, like I think that's why we'll if there is a taper off kind of later as opposed to earlier because people maybe it's COVID or whatever, but people may be more likely to get disenfranchised from the whole thing once they see enough woke movies, and they're just like, eh.
And they get tired of that. They know what to
Yeah.
do the equal average again here for a second. I want to. This is a different average. No space. But average. We're gonna do just the ones that you said yes for. Oh, you didn't hold the shift, did you, buddy?
I did well.
Okay, let go of the shift.
See, that's why I can't hold the shift.
Oh, are you still holding it? Oh, I'm still clicking on it. Okay, there and hold the shift. Yeah, and then there. Okay, so enter. That's that average of those ones, and we'll go this way. Let's go. I mean, I don't know why I just averaged it out in the ones. This doesn't really make much difference, this stuff. But so far, the ones you selected, yeah, it's about 2.9 and 1.49. And let's do the median, same thing. Alright, and they already assumed we know what we want to do, so luckily, look how smart it is. Just tell me what I want to do. Alright, so
The program's so smart, I can't figure out how to use it.
this is a little bit better. Those ones are pretty close to each other, so that's a nice. So now, if we look at here, if we want to just, this is the ones you selected. Now, if we do all these, I actually have that right here, so you can look at that. So this thing needs to be moved up a little bit. Oh, this column got whatever. Okay. So as you see, the ones I guess this is the average of all of them, minus the Woody King. I guess I could change that, but I didn't add that there.
Whatever.
But whatever, it doesn't matter. So it's a little bit higher my averages than yours. The ones you selected, the ones you didn't select here, but still we got 2.9, 1.4, 2.8, 1. Compare that to all of them here. This is a pretty similar, but this one is much lower. Well, not much lower, but a little bit lower. But the median I think is more accurate. We're going with. So the accurate as a statistic, it's about on par, 2.3. The median actually for these ones is even higher, 2.8 and 1.3. This one's, I'm flying all around, I know. But so we can take a look at the median average score or average box office over the production budget is a little bit higher for these woke movies, so the average is a little bit lower than the average. And the domestic actually is a lot higher for some reason than the domestic for general for all these movies. Although about on par for the average, for the median, or median was a lot higher. The average is actually about on par with this average. So that's the one you selected. This is the ones I selected. For some reason, it's actually almost the same, honestly, if you compare them all. So median might even be a more accurate statistical tool to look at to compare these two different bits of data. So basically, I mean, for some reason the median, I think the median here is why it's so all over the place is that you just picked too few movies or something like that, or too over the
Well,
place.
that's how many movies do I have? 22. You want to pick 22? How many do you have? Do you have 22 as well?
I think the more data you use, because
Probably the better it is. of
yeah,
course,
because like for example, if Go Woke Go Broke is sort of has a selective bias to it, that's just mostly picking bad movies anyway, then you want to compare that to all the movies, not just the good movies that are not woke, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, so you said these are the
for
ones
example,
that...
let's say another thing you could do is you can compare it to the bad movies that are not woke comparatively, the bad movies that have gone broke because of woke, and then see if there's any difference in how bad they went. If they're all just the same badness, even though they're woke or not woke, that would imply that wokeness isn't as meaningful of a category. Because my general impression about this stuff is that there's a lot of factors that influence if a movie is going to succeed or not, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying wokeness isn't one of them, but if you're going to use Go Woke Go Broke, if if a recognition of some sort of pattern doesn't seem doesn't seem to really be very helpful, other than, like I said, the ones that you selected out. That was the biggest difference, right? On this sheet. But
So-
over here, it doesn't, I mean, I think it's,
You want to read off the most important, just to summarize the data.
yeah, let's go for the
So we've
overall
got-
for all the movies.
For all the movies are basically the average world box office over the production budget is 3.25.
Yep.
The domestic over the production budget is 1.5. The median for the world box office over production value 2.3, and domestic is 0.9.
Yes, so what that
7.5.
tells us
So,
right there is that we have outliers on the top and the bottom
Yeah.
that sort of skewer the averages, because average is adding everything up and dividing by the total number, while median is the middle point
Does this give us
of all of them, right?
Does this give us anything that we can say about the domestic and the compared to the world, or?
Well, it looks like that. Because again, production budget, as you can imagine, production budget is gonna expect to make money in the global, not just the domestic, right?
Yeah.
So if you just include the domestic box office, you're missing
missing-
more than half
you're
the picture,
losing-
actually. Yeah, right.
But you're not. So if
About
you just
half the
consider, but then again, didn't you say that you want to consider just the domestic for Go Woke Go Broke?
Yeah. So, for
So-
example, if you did just the domestic average and the domestic mean compared to the woke movies, let's say,
Yeah.
it's for the
Which-
averages
is it
and
these
mean.
two or these two?
No, it's those two is the one you selected. Those are the ones
Oh.
I selected. Yep. Well, just for a second here. I'll just copy the data so we can compare directly.
That might be easier.
Because if you do
On
this,
one sheet.
you gotta copy, and then you gotta paste special value zone. All right. So this is the difference. So this is the median. This is the this is the average and median. So right here, this should be copy this, so it's easier to see for us. Paste. You have to hit control, I guess.
That's so stupid.
Yeah. So the average is a little bit lower by about 0.02%, or whatever, and the median is actually quite high comparatively.
For the domestic.
Yes, this is just the domestic
Yeah.
we're looking at right now.
So
So the domestic,
It's interesting.
median-wise, it has higher
So
value
why-
than the average.
why would the median be higher than the average? Because there's
There's some movies that are they're outliers on the top and the bottom of the chart.
so the median basically means finding not the exact middle, but the middle from all of the numbers you've put together, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so it makes
Which means, I mean, guess the average budget of a Hollywood movie is what you said, like
right, well, this is right
45
here.
or something, or
Well, again, this is not including.
Okay.
This is only including for
90.
the ones 10 million or more. So this is not for every Hollywood movie.
Mm-hmm.
But from this list right here, the average is $66 million for the production budget.
Mm-hmm.
So that's saying that. Excuse me.
and on average they
On
make
average, yeah, they're making 3 times that production budget for the world box office, and on average, they're making 1.5. So what if that's 990 million or 100 million for the domestic box office on average? And woke movies here, on average, are saying they're making, well, of course, this is the production budget here, so they're making, I guess, I mean, that's the average production budget. I don't know if this is a useful statistic.
Are they
say
making?
that.
Are they spending more money on woke
Yeah,
movies
exactly.
too?
They're spending
How
more.
about
So we got to look just on the over. No, they might be
So
spending
what
more on woke movies too. Actually, I didn't think to look at that, but
that? Average was 66.
you gotta measure what movies and the average of all the ones I selected.
It looks like, because it looks like they're about the same, maybe a little bit less.
The ones you selected of both. But I don't know how useful it is again to compare just non-woke movies, because woke movies is movies aren't being called really not woke. They're either being woke or they're just regular, right?
Well,
So to say
yeah.
a non-woke movie is sort of just kind of you're just pointing out that it's not especially political or something.
Yes,
like that.
but when you
So
compare it to all movies, that means you're comparing it to the woke movies as well as comparing it to just non-woke
you
movies.
could remove
right?
the woke movies as well from it, but I don't think that would change the statistical data very much. But we could do that.
I mean, I think it would also be interesting to, I don't know if we have, but if there's a way to organize these by only by the ones that made money, and I wonder if we could see that it's only like a handful of films that are
They actually made money. But the thing
well
is,
that are getting us any of the high numbers in general. It's just movies like
you just search this thing right here. This category right there would be what you want to sort by. So data sort range.
let's see.
That would be. This gives us the ones that have the highest world box office, basically, compared to that's the lowest, so the other way around. So the highest ones be like Us, Hidden Figures, Beauty and the Beast, Overboard, Black Panther. Black Panther, I guess, is the only one that you said. These ones right here in the top, basically woke, mass-produced.
Overboard did that well. Well,
Apparently,
oh,
yeah.
because it was only because that's
Exactly.
It didn't
Well,
make
Us
that
as
much
well.
money.
Us only made only cost $20 million, and it made
Yeah.
a lot of money. Holy shit!
But we're looking at stuff like Black Panther that made over almost like.
$1 billion.
But then again,
Captain Marvel made $1 billion apparently. So on the.
I mean, these numbers should all be. Also, we have to
With a
remember
grain of
too,
salt,
though,
for
right?
sure.
Okay. So the problem as well, because
This as well.
you didn't double the budget of any of these things, right? So these numbers.
But it's not about. This is not.
Well, I
this is
know,
not-
but I'm also another point. I'm also wondering is, are movies making money? Because
But if all movies aren't
we
making
need
money,
if we're only doing half the budget, then we need to have at least a 0.2, right, for it to have broke even.
this is the highest rates right here.
Well, I know, but
I
I know,
we're
but not
generally
to just to
saying
go
that
woke or broke
Halloween
thing.
apparently is the
I'm
highest.
just curious that like our fucking
No,
movies actually
it
making
sounds
money
like
because
look right here. The
you
average
need
right there.
0.2, don't
The
you?
average and the median are pointing to at 3 and 2.
Yeah.
So yes, on average they're making just about twice their budget. Sounds like.
so they're barely making on
Sounds
average
like
barely
it.
making a profit.
On average, it's a bit more than barely. It's 3 times, but the median is 2 times. So
Yeah.
again, that's a
And
few
of
movies
course-
might skewer that. So I think median's
Yeah.
might be a better tool to look at it. But still, if you compare both of them, yes, at most 3 times, around 2 to 3 times as much money, an average seems like they're making, which isn't that amazing, I suppose. But it is making money, I guess.
No, well,
Assuming that 2 times is a factor that makes money. But
well, they used to do a lot better than this in the industry, and it was mainly because they had a huge supplemental income, something we don't talk about anymore, called DVD sales and VHS sales and stuff like that, right? Where they would say, like, a big story I heard recently was Austin Powers, and that it did terrible at the box office, but it got a sequel because of how many DVDs it sold.
well, this also
And
doesn't tell us.
but that's the thing is we
either,
don't get
though.
any of that nowadays because things go on streaming and no one's paying for that. So it's like what they make at the box office almost seems like that's it for how much money they're going to make with movies nowadays.
Obviously, like for example,
Which is rough.
the box office when it comes to the Star Wars movies doesn't include all the toys
Well,
and all
Star
the other
Wars-
things they sell.
yeah.
So that
Star
obviously
Wars
should be a
is-
much higher number, right?
Star Wars is one of the ones though that actually has some of that stuff. A lot of these,
Think of all
most of these
the-
other movies don't really
All
have.
the Marvel movies, they all have
Yeah.
toys connected to them that they're making more money off of. So yeah, like movies like Overboard.
But do you count
or
that though? Because a lot of
Halloween,
that
probably
stuff
not,
could
but-
be like, are people? I wonder, like, are people buying Spider-Man stuff because of the new Spider-Man movie? Because they just like Spider-Man because of, what Spider-Man is. Like, I don't know. I don't know if a new Batman.
No,
I mean, maybe a new
I
Batman
think
movie is
they
because
sell
it gets
new
it in their
toys.
mind.
They
but-
sell new toys, I think, when the movies come out.
Well, yeah.
So I think
Oh,
what
yeah.
it means more so is, well, I think we shouldn't look at this too much in terms of that other thing. We should only be looking, because that's all we have for data right now, is to only look at the box office and the production budget. This is all we're looking at. So we can't add extra factors into it. We can, but it's not going to help us in terms of what we have here. So just off of the production budget and the box office, what does it tell us? Does it give a credence to go woke, go broke? Or does it Now, let me put another way. What would it have to do to give us credence? How would it have to be like a lot higher, just a little bit higher on average, or lower on average? Lower, I suppose, to prove that a woke movie therefore is underperforming in comparison to all the other movies or all the other non-woke movies.
I think a lower average would prove that a woke movie is going to lose money compared to a non-woke movie, which I don't think is necessarily the case, because the average would prove that.
Well, Go Woke, Go Broke isn't saying that it's going to lose money. I mean, is it? I mean,
it's saying that if you, because that's another facet of it too. It's saying that if you go woke, you're going to
lose money,
go broke.
But that obviously doesn't play out in 100% of the cases, right?
No, of course not.
There's plenty of woke movies there on the list that have made a lot of money. I mean, so
of course, and there's because just like with any expression doesn't mean it's 100% of the time. It's a fact. Is that the word I'm looking for? A facsimile of like a representation of what you're trying to say in real life, right?
So if we're looking for correlation and causation, right? Because this is what this discussion really kind of boils down to, right?
Yeah.
Is there a correlation between a movie's wokeness and its success in the box office? And of course, even if there was a correlation, that doesn't even imply causation either.
No.
But if there's a correlation, which I mean, I don't know. If there's a correlation with this data, it only suggests a weak correlation, because it's not like both the mean and the median kind of can say that.
Yeah.
So I think that what it shows to me is that there's probably other factors involved than just the go woke, go broke mantra that determines a movie's success or failure. And if we, of course, determine those things, like if we had, for example, think about this obviously doesn't take in part any of the COVID era issues, like any movies in the 2021. Well, no, inflation doesn't matter because it's a ratio base. Okay. So the domestic box office and international box office should be the same number as the production budget.
Yeah, but
a little bit different.
Make an argument that like the 2016 movies should be weighed higher because the money was more valuable back then, or something.
Well,
I mean, I'm sure it's a negligible.
But they're still making 2016, 2017 dollars for their for their budget, or not budget, for their box office.
Yeah, who's got time for that?
So I think it's if we did that stuff, that would be, because there is actually a statistic on that website that has inflation numbers.
Inflation count.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it has, you can check the box office inflation wise, but that's only useful in strong numbers, not strong numbers, but like in just comparing number to number, how much a movie made. Like saying Avatar made the most box office compared to like Ben-Hur or whatever. Yes, you want to use the inflation numbers because that will compare them equally, as opposed to saying, Ben-Hur only made 10 million or whatever, which doesn't mean much to us nowadays. But but the ratio should mean more. If the movie makes 3 times its budget, it shouldn't matter if the budget was $10 or if it was $1 million or $100 million. It still made 3 times its budget. Well, so shouldn't that matter? Or
for the most part, I mean, there are things like super under budget movies, right, where that will inflate the percentage if it's a $10 million movie that made $15 million that made double its budget, but barely anyone went to go see it.
20 million would be good.
Well, something like that, right? Where
of course, like us, for example, $20 million,
and especially when we're talking about like political movies and that kind of stuff like that. That might be if you're making things cheap enough, that might be a small enough audience anyway that you can make it look like you're making, that you're doing well, because like I guess you can, the stupid Daily Wire movies I think actually don't do that bad because they get people to buy them.
Yeah, and they don't cost like very
nothing.
much. Yeah, exactly. This is another reason why like a lot of those Blumhouse or A24 movies can be very successful because they don't cost very much, even though most of them maybe don't make as much money as they expect,
people actually pay to go see them, like, and that's probably why they do a lot of horror, right? Because apparently people like to pay for that.
Yeah, people do. Go broke thing. I want to say though, there's 2 parts of it. I think we need to focus on. There's, like, again, I mentioned before, go woke, go broke as a sort of reactionary idea. So the idea that a movie comes out and it fails, therefore you can say after the fact, oh well, it was woke, therefore that's why it failed. But I think there's another aspect of go woke, go broke, which is a more what's the word? Active? Let's put it more political. So it's more like a boycott style go woke, go broke. A movie you think is going to be woke, you tell your audience to, don't see it because it's going to be woke, and that could affect the movie's outcome as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
So then there might be, if that's the case, so I don't know which movies we can point to exactly that
I mean-
might be, but if that was the case, let's say example, say a movie comes out that's already considered woke, they say, oh, this movie's going to fail, it's go woke, go broke, and it does fail. Could that not be sort of circular in a way that it fails because people told it it's going to fail or told its audience not to go see it, and then when it does fail, they can claim it failed because it's woke, not claim that they failed because they told their audience not to see it and they didn't see it.
Wouldn't that also assume though that the go woke, go broke people would be the main audience for this thing that you're looking for? It's like
It could be.
yeah. So
I think that goes back into the idea that the fan base.
But then why
How
would they be
connected
trying
it
to
is to
make something that's the specific audience for go woke, right? I don't know. And then why would they expect it not to go broke or for the fans not to be upset by it?
Well, like again, going back to
Because
the
this is like they have I don't know with
Yeah.
they have the data to know what people want. It's like
Well, but
it's
I
not
think
very
it's
hard.
Not that simple.
And it's also you have to understand too when there's two sides of this kind of stuff. People
Yeah.
will go see a movie just to support it.
Yeah.
You know, like
Sometimes.
there is the Sonic movie is the greatest example of that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was the movie that people went to go see because they listened to the fans or whatever.
The guy.
So you will get people that will do the opposite of
Didn't the director of Terminator Dark Fate also do a Sonic movie?
Did he probably?
I think he might have. Because I think that interview I was mentioning before, he was talking about the reaction to the
Sonic movie not woke.
No, it's, yeah, but you know the Sonic teeth situation.
Yeah, the
there.
Sonic. Yeah, the
Sonic-
horror.
Yeah, the horror. Yes, the cosmic horror that was Sonic. And so yeah, there is definitely I think a part where
Like, okay, I can see people saying, I hate Ghostbusters 2016 because of women, and I can
Yeah.
also see people saying, well, now I'm going to go see it because the
there's
the
women?
yes,
Yes,
the
there could be-
racist.
there could be both
Because we
sides
finally
to
got
it,
women
sure.
representation, and so I would almost argue that probably
cancels
evens
it
it
out.
out.
Perhaps. I'm wondering
Because the
if-
real normies aren't the people on the internet, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, so I feel like if Go Woke, Go Broke has really affected the normie population, we would kind of
Yeah.
see it, which I probably think, probably not. It's probably, I think what the data is more showing us that, does politics affect how much movies make? Maybe, but there's probably so many other factors that I don't think you could probably just say if a movie's woke, it's not going to make money because there are plenty of woke movies, that are going to make money, and there are plenty of unwoke movies that are going to make money. So
So here's another you mentioned before. So here's some movies. I just give links to things that I found if they were woke or not. So some of these people you might recognize, right? So for example, we said Matrix Federation. The Geeks and Gamers said it was woke. I don't know. I mean, I don't care what they're saying. Quartering says whatever was woke. I mean,
Matrix.
yeah, the Matrix was woke. I don't know. Esquire is saying the opposite actually, or some guy in Esquire was saying it was woke. I
Well,
don't know. That's not really the
Who's
point.
saying it was woke?
Point is people just say stuff online. Anyone can say anything they want
Yeah.
online, and that's why it's like, for example, it was one of these movies I had. It was like an actual, it was Forbes, I think, or whatever it was saying it was woke. Was that the Aladdin movie? No, it was not. Maybe it's Mercury
I
Times.
said,
Black Panther, like it was saying it was woke, but in a good context,
Oh,
not
yeah.
in a bad context. Like as if a lot of those were saying woke as like it's a derogatory comment about the movie's quality
Yeah.
or something.
because when they see something that's because that's part of the two pictures kind of thing. What they see is woke as a negative thing. The other another group of people will see it and say, no, this is just what movies should have in it nowadays that they didn't.
This random YouTube weirdo says it was woke. I don't know
Jonas
who the-
J.
He's got 2,000 subscribers.
Wow, look at him go.
Yeah, good for him. But I mean,
That's better quality than my videos.
Strange World. Well, I mean, I don't think he's the only one saying Strange World is bad. But I mean, I just
Well, the Strange World was pretty popular because of the Florida thing that happened with it too, right?
Apparently. Oh yeah, that's the only reason why. I heard
Arcade
it.
Outpost.
Ever heard of that guy?
Yeah,
National Review, I think, is pretty right wing newspaper.
I've never heard of that.
They had a lot of ones about woke. This guy right here, Toto,
I'm surprised there's no Breitbart.
Hollywood and Toto. This dude, all he does is write about how Hollywood is woke. It's a whole article. It's a whole news website about right wing take on entertainment. So
Yep.
pretty much all of his articles are about like. So that's why I said us was woke because he says it's woke. I don't know this guy. What actual qualifications he has to determine that, but
Well, like I said, since it's an invisible line in the sand, a lot of people are going to have different opinions on what's too far for them, what they think,
yeah.
Um,
But does that help us then in this conversation? If woke really, because it sounds like,
well,
it does seem like you're kind of admitting that woke is really
The problem
depends
is-
on the person that's using it,
Yeah.
right? So
the problem is like the woke. I guess the woke stuff is kind of an influx of one side's politics into movies.
Yeah, that's okay.
You know, I mean, I would wonder if we just started to make a bunch of like Christian nationalist movies, how those would do in theaters. I mean, that would kind of be the inverse of going woke, right? But it would, I think it would, I bet that would prove, I don't know, I think they would do very well in theaters.
I mean,
they might do very well. You get, but think
they
like
get the
Passion of the
Christian-
Christ.
yeah, they get those people
But
in there,
That's
yeah.
like every now and again.
Yeah.
If there was a Passion of the Christ coming out like a Marvel movie every couple months,
there are Christian movies coming
Yeah.
out every so often.
they don't have I think the market to make that much money.
I don't know how much they make, but
You
comparison
get
to
like
their-
somebody like Tom Cruise who has a cult that follows him that's
I
willing to
know,
spend
right.
all their money. Maybe, yeah.
But I think you've touched I think the important point is I think doing all this data, what it reveals to me I think mostly is that yes, woke, at least the discussion about Go Woke Go Broke is more about a movie's adding politics into films, particularly into films that weren't political or at least did not seem political before that.
Yeah.
And I think that is the general, at least for me when I look at this stuff, the general trend I see. Like people are upset when their Star Wars movies become politics all of a sudden. I mean, what they even mean by that, I think, is that they mean politics they don't like, because everything has politics in it. You can't truly say that something's apolitical. Even Star Wars had politics involved in it in the previous films.
Oh yeah, but then there's also things that like, I don't want to say are apolitical, but are
Empire
more
Strikes
obvious.
Back is pro-incest. Let's be honest.
Well, it's just like there are things that are more obviously okay to do and things that aren't.
Well,
so,
you know, obviously okay to do. What do you mean by? I mean,
for
in
example-
the times, you mean, or at
yeah,
the time of the contemporary?
Because it's like you can
Yeah.
read the room, right, and kind of know. I mean, I think the why there's a backlash in one direction than the other is probably because obviously Hollywood is more liberal than it is conservative, so
yeah.
more of these movies are being made, and I feel like I don't want to say liberal people, but I want to say people in Hollywood are probably feel the pressure to be more political, you know, since 2016 or whatever. So they feel more the need to put this kind of stuff in, and I think maybe it's not just Hollywood. I think, for all we know, it could have been some kind of awakening that happened in 2015 or 16 or something like that, that now politics is just going into everything. And we're just noticing it in media more because it's something we all sit down and watch all the time, so it's pretty obvious, I think.
Politics has always been in everything.
Well,
Let's be
yeah,
honest
but
here.
there are
Come
things
on.
like I'm saying. Read the room. Like, okay,
Yeah.
if you make a movie about, like, I don't know, pedophilia being bad, most people are going to be like, oh yeah, we get that. If you make a movie about, like, you know, illegal immigration being good, there are people that's going to rub the wrong way. And so it's
Yeah.
like, do you have to do that? No. I mean,
No.
you can. And if you're going to make a big budget movie that's supposed to target everybody, why would you purposely, you know, and I think people would purposely do that because they're trying to change people. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that because that's what art does, right? You're trying to put your thoughts out there and your vision or whatever, and that changes people, you know? So
Do you think that you mentioned before, like, the Hollywood is trying to push a message.
Well,
Now,
yep.
the Go Woke Go Broke, I always
Not
got the
all.
notion that Go Woke Go Broke has a little aspect of conspiracy behind it, or you might not call it conspiracy, but there's this notion that it is being pushed because Go Woke Go Broke is, I think, trying to say that the profit motive isn't the priority for a lot of these films, because they're saying that these movies aren't succeeding. Even though they're prioritizing politics over the success of the film, so therefore
Yeah.
these people must be not interested necessarily in the politic or the success over inserting their political image into the film, their political voice. And I think that the reason why I call it a conspiracy is because I don't think that there's necessarily a very strong, like, I say, like, I still feel like these films are thinking that they're doing these things to make more money. I don't think the guy in Ghostbusters, for example, said, I'm going to make this movie with a bunch of women because I think it will make less money or it won't succeed. I think he's thinking it'll succeed and I
I'll
can have
change
some
the
women in
world.
it. Not only think he's going to change the world, but I think he's thinking that's not going to have a negative consequence to it.
Yeah.
They're not doing this because they think that there'll be financial repercussions to their whatever progressive or political opinions.
I mean, they probably live in a
imply.
bubble and just think that's what everyone thinks. Mm-hmm. I mean, you live in LA and you don't
that-
ever deal with anybody outside of
That implies that they're not doing it though. Like, it's not like the profit motive isn't still obviously there behind it.
Well,
if
because-
they do it because
yeah.
they know they're going to make less money, I don't think movies like that will be very.
Movies
made
are
very
only
often.
they're not only made by one person. So
Of
there's
course
whole
not, yeah,
departments of
yeah.
people that are trying to make it profitable, while these people are around trying to make their vision or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. Of
you
course,
know?
there's always that conflict
Yes.
between the artist and the company, the corporation. For sure. So
Though that being said, I mean, come on, we have like there's a lot of I don't know. There's a lot of art and stuff you can see from history about people, doing things they think are important, not necessarily worrying about the profits, right? Like
Yeah, but we're not
saying
talking.
certain messages and.
Yeah.
I mean, I was trying to find it right now. I was trying to look it up, but there's like the Oscars, for example.
Oh, Richard Dreyfuss is an old man.
Oh, I know.
He's a crudgeony old man.
But I mean, I'm trying to. I mean, it's easier to look that up because they made the new rules for the Oscars.
Yes,
basically, are saying
inclusive.
that. Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you got stuff like
think
that.
that's
You got the.
It's gonna affect
the
Oscar
diversity,
movies.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
These rules, the ESG scores, and that kind of stuff. That's pretty much aren't really trying to motivate you for diversity, but they're really kind of making it that to be competitive, you must do these certain things. I think is giving people less room to make different choices, kind of like, and so kind of trying to weigh it in a certain favor of doing certain things, which I get because, I mean, who the fuck knows? These things maybe are backed by, organizations or
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I don't know, but
That's what you're saying, though. Yeah, I mean, clearly.
because obviously Christians donate money to
right?
do things to push
Yeah.
their message, and of course other groups will do the same thing. So.
Yep. I think it's a little bit of chicken or the egg, though, kind of situation, isn't it? I think,
Well,
especially when we talk about ESG kind
yeah.
of stuff, I feel like
Because it all kind of happened around the same time.
Well, the profit motive is still there, though. It's still, I think, especially going to the ESG, because I just read some stuff about that recently, and I was thinking about it. They're still implying that the reason why they're doing this stuff is because they think that they'll suffer financially otherwise. Like, if they're not progressive or environmentally, whatever, progressive, that's going to be somehow a detriment to their bottom line in this modern world. It's not, I mean, I think, particularly from a left perspective, they don't view these companies doing this thing as if they actually mean to do it, in a very non-cynical way.
Yeah, but
You
they
know
were
what I mean?
making money before, too.
Yeah, but they
before all this
see
stuff,
the
and yet
change.
they
So,
see-
like, think of the environmental impact. Like, if
I mean-
people are going to be more interested in vegan or environmental products, even if they don't know, even if these products aren't actually environmental or vegan, they'll still, if they can make more money selling these products with that label,
Well, where's the data?
or make less money.
Because maybe what we're seeing of the, because obviously all that diversity stuff is couldn't be seen as woke in certain countries, and so what we could also be seeing is just a push to focus on the world instead of domestic, which would be, which of course, if you're trying to make every movie for everyone in the world, you're
Yeah.
gonna need one person of all the different races or whatever,
Well, that's
and
why
that-
we should look mostly at the. I mean, we shouldn't. I think it's. It's different to look at the difference between the domestic and the worldwide, right? Because if a movie go woke, go broke, it's gonna mostly appear in the domestic sphere, right? Worldwide, they're not gonna necessarily say, "Oh, this movie's got too much inclusion, therefore I don't want to watch it," or has
Well,
women in
China.
the front. Maybe,
They don't
but
like
in a
black
different
people
way,
for some
though. You know what I
reason.
mean? Like it's a different perspective. So this is mostly just an American. Position. And if you look at the domestic stuff, it seems like it's not. Or even in domestic versus, what's the worldwide one there? Do you have that there as well? The worldwide, yeah, that's yours. These are all movies, though. I think that's what we've been using before. Yeah, copy it. Yeah, copy it.
3.2.
Yeah, 2.4. How was that comparison?
Oh, it's gonna tell me this bullshit again.
Yep.
Oh my
You know,
god.
you gotta do copy.
Jesus Christ.
Okay, what am I doing for everybody? You gotta do a special copy. So right click, space cut. Yeah, values only. There you go. That's how you're gonna get it. So where are we looking at there? Averages. This is right here. Comparison. Oh wait. This is the averages for yours, right? This is the averages for mine. Wow. So one, two, three. A lot better worldwide. It looks like.
Yeah.
But I think the whole general ones are almost the exact same numbers as these ones, actually. For some reason, yours actually did a lot better.
Well,
right? I wonder why.
Well, because I think
One you selected as the...
I think the whole diversity inclusion thing is very specific to Western countries. So I think I would honestly say the whole the woke stuff would actually sell better in the United States, I would imagine, than worldwide. But I mean, I highly doubt people in Africa give a shit about like the gender politics we have in our movies. Like
they wouldn't read into those
yeah.
things probably as much as we read into them now.
Yeah, I mean, and like the whole like any of the race kind of stuff would have a completely different context for them who don't live in the United States, and I don't know.
Well, I wonder how they see stuff like Black Panther, for example. I mean, like that's something that might resonate specifically in Africa, or the new Black Panther when it talks specifically about Central America and South America and Africa in that movie, right?
Yeah.
Do they have special resonance? Do they do better in those regions of the world, or do they see it for what it is, which might be just a sort of surface level analysis of these issues and not actually, you know?
I thought it was distasteful how
What?
to defeat the Hispanic man they had to burn his back
Yeah, why?
because the slur is
Wet
so they had to draw his back off to beat him.
I thought that was awful in a sense. Just the idea that there was like these two colonized groups that have to fight each other.
That's why it was woke.
No, that's the opposite of woke.
What do you mean?
If it was woke, they'd be fighting the colonizer, not the colonized at each other's throat. If anything, that only is supposed to be an example of how the colonizers keep the colonized in control by having them fight each other, as opposed to the real enemy.
That would work if these people didn't have vibranium and the most advanced technology in the entire world, and like Wakandas weren't colonized ever. And neither were the Mexican people because they were underwater the whole time. So neither of them peoples were colonized.
Yeah, it was more allegories though, or metaphors.
It wasn't. And
really
this is why I'm saying it's woke,
yeah.
is because you look at their skin color and say, well, obviously it's these things where it's like, yeah, just because they have the same skin color doesn't mean they have anything in contact with the people in South America because these were underwater people. This is a fantasy.
Well, no,
like if they were actually these I don't know.
And they're supposed to be about the
and if
exploitation
the Wakandas were
of
actually
resources,
colonized and stuff, yeah.
That's about the resource exploitation, I thought, was what we're trying to say. That they both have the thing that everyone else wants, particularly the Western powers, let's say, want.
And they're fighting each other because they both want it.
Yeah, no, that was the part I didn't agree with. I thought
why
that was
wouldn't
poorly
they, though?
done.
It makes perfect sense that they're fighting over it. It's like one of the most valuable minerals on Earth.
Yeah, but they both...
And if all the Wakandans have all of it, then everyone's going to stop looking for it.
They both had it for so long, and they never had a conflict with each other before.
Yes, because...
all of a sudden they have to fight each other now
and
about
this is when we go back into the origin of basically all of this movie stuff, which is it's just bad. It's because it's bad. It's because of that. It's because of the new ways that they're making movies now, where it's just being rolled out, where none of this was thought ahead. If they knew this going back, the Avengers movie would, this kind of stuff would have been set up ahead of time. And if they did that, yes, it would have made a lot more sense. But because when they went to make this movie, like we see with a lot of these new Marvel movies, it's like the writers think it's a blank slate, and they can just throw whatever they want in there. It's like, but don't you remember all this stuff? And it's
well, I feel like that's not such a big deal though, because they're just comic book movies. Like I know this,
but that's the whole point of the Marvel thing, is a continuity that makes sense.
Maybe
that was its selling.
Did people really care so much about that?
That was its selling point.
I feel like the whole point of fantasy or science fiction literature is that it's a blank slate. That you can do what you want. You can explore new worlds and new ideas with this blank slate of fantastical reality. You don't have to be enslaved by the realities of our common world or of a canon, which there is that, of course. I mean, but that shouldn't limit. I mean, think of like the Spider-Verse stuff. Isn't that great because it's so out there? And I didn't see the new one, but
it's limited by. It's exactly what it is, though. It's being limited by its canon. Yeah. It's doing stuff from the comic books. Yeah. So
and they just bring them all in, or
the whole Society of Spider-Men with the web thing, like that's from the comic books. The multiverse of Spider-Man and whatever. And so I don't know. I don't really find that doing anything new. Like,
all right. I mean,
what would be the okay? Maybe the closest new thing you could say is like the Ant-Man movie that came out with Quantumania, because I almost feel like that had nothing to do with any of the comics. Like there was no comic book about that, because that was just like off the dude's head. But
I think we can also, you don't have to just rely on I think the comic books themselves are doing things. So like, I mean, there's comic books that movies are based off of that we're doing this, that we're taking a new approach to a canon sort of thing, right?
I think we're going to get off the topic a little bit.
But I know this. I wonder. The reason why I brought this up is, I mean, I think this does go back to the idea of, can you think of a good woke movie? Because again, if the leftist perspective is woke is just what the conservatives use for bad, I mean, show me. I mean, I think you.
Now,
point to a good woke movie.
If we want to say, okay, so if I use other people's definition of woke,
no, I mean,
right? Because they're like, okay, on your list, you got some people saying things are woke. Like, I would probably say like Us may be a good movie. let's see. Incredibles 2? Someone said that was woke?
Someone who
Everyone?
Said it. No, that's not Incredibles 2. Is that really? I said that?
Oh, but Black Klansman, you probably meant to put that under.
Maybe I meant Clan. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought maybe I didn't. I thought I had someone there, but whatever. It doesn't matter.
Jojo Rabbit was good. Quartering said it was woke, you know? Like, I thought that was a good movie.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
now, let's see. No, that is using other people's definitions. Let's try using my own definition.
Mm-hmm.
A movie I've seen recently, at least back to 2016, that was woke that I would
Yeah.
say is good.
That's a good woke movie.
Okay, well, see, I was just about to try to say, like, The Whale,
Oh.
but,
I didn't
because The
think-
Whale
is
had,
that
like,
woke? Oh, was that woke? I don't know.
some, that's what I'm going to say. It had some
Yeah.
anti-religious stuff. It had the fat body positivity stuff. He's gay, that kind of stuff. But my problem is the movie did all those things in a way that didn't make it feel woke. It made it feel like it felt like he was just a real person. You know, it didn't feel like this was a character they put up on the stage to say, "Hey, love fat people."
So
you know, like
so this sounds like you're saying good wokeness isn't woke. Or well done wokeness isn't woke. So wokeness is more about poorly done wokeness, maybe. I mean,
Well, no, but you were saying
Yeah.
a woke movie that I like. I'm trying, like with that movie, I'm trying to. I liked the movie. I'm trying to decipher: is it really woke, or is the woke things they did not actually woke? You know what I mean? Because, like I said, it's a line, and if they go over the line, then yeah, it would be considered woke. I mean, I guess you. Would I consider woke? I don't know. Because, like, for example,
You don't think, like,
there's a character in there that's
Sorry.
supposed to be like your religious character.
Yeah.
And at least the perspective I got from the film is they didn't. There was anti-religious stuff in the film, but they also made his point of view look fine. You know, where it was like,
Yeah. They did a.
for some people, the path might be to believe, and for some people, it isn't. You know,
Yeah.
and that was maybe a message. And to say something like that is, I don't know. I'm trying to think of some other movies that came out recently. Can
Well,
I
how
use
about
a?
just ones that you just said yes to on that list?
Oh, on this list,
Yeah.
okay.
So yes, we were
right,
talking
so-
about what woke movies that are good because.
So you asked me what
yes.
woke movie would I say that is good, and
Yep.
looking at the list here.
Yep, from the list we've got, not that list. Woke.
Yeah, I went down. I would say good is good passing, or is good like good's not great,
Yeah.
right? Like Black Panther was a good movie.
Yeah, it was a good movie. You
Like,
liked it.
Yeah,
right?
I would say that's woke, but that was good. Like
Yep.
the Black Widow movie was all right. I wouldn't say it was bad. It was kind of boring, but it was good enough. I don't know. Like No Time to Die. I didn't see it, but I'm confident enough to say that
Oh,
the
you didn't
James
even see
Bond
it, though,
movie.
but-
No, I'm confident enough to say the James Bond movie was probably.
Yeah,
it was probably more. It was more good than it was bad. I'm
Not
sure.
all James Bond movies are good, but
Because that's because you watched all the old ones.
oh, they're
I,
good, but they're not good in a good way.
Yeah, but so like I follow some of these people, you know, that like we'll talk about this kind of
The
crap.
Quartering and the
I really don't watch
Games and Gamers
not
or
much
Geeks
of
and Gamers.
Quartering. Geeks. I watch more Nerdrotic.
Nerdrotic,
Geeks
okay.
and Gamers will be on a live stream they do on Fridays. So
Yeah.
I've heard some of these people spout their opinions, but
Geeks
after listening to a handful of them too, like I heard them talk about the Lashana Lynch thing about No Time to Die, but when the movie came out and they saw it, I didn't really hear any of them say the movie was like bad. The biggest complaint people had about the movie itself was that, spoiler alert, in the end of the movie, James Bond just kind of lets himself die when he could just like run away or something. So
Well, because he didn't want to be in any more movies.
yeah, because
obviously.
he just yes, thank you.
Contracts expired. Well, okay.
So there are
Okay,
some
so
movies,
they
yeah.
are, yep. So I think that reason why I picked out the Quartering and Geeks and Gamers because they're the easiest ones to find because they're
They
the
make
most
Geeks and Gamers makes like 20 videos
Yes,
a day or
I know.
some
It's
shit.
insane. And Quartering, I'm sorry, the Quartering
Does-
thumbnails are the most obnoxious thumbnails you will ever see in your life.
He's a thumbnail guy.
He is a thumbnail. Jesus
Everybody's
Christ.
crying, Joe. They're all
Oh
crying.
my! I can't. I mean, that's another reason why I couldn't get into Stitch and stuff because they're trying a little hard to do that too. I think, and I can't stand the
thumbnails?
super exaggerated like everyone's weeping and
Yeah,
whatever.
That's, what,
anyway, yeah.
well, that's one of the funny things about their live stream because Adam does that and he's like a visual guy. So a lot of times he spends the stream just doing the thumbnail, which is just
the guys talking.
Yes,
Okay,
exactly,
well.
and like making fun of
But so I think the point.
Come on, who doesn't love a face of Cenk Uygur crying? Cenk Uygur baby face.
I mean, they're not the only ones obviously who do it. It's not like a unique. It's a YouTube algorithm kind of thing. So it's nothing.
The
It's not their
clicks,
fault.
The bright colors too.
Yep,
There's a lot of that stuff. Yeah.
But like the Quartering and Geeks and Gamers, they feel like they have really capitalized on this
Made a
whole
career?
woke-
Oh,
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, Quartering is famous for his anti-Brie Larson tirades, right? I mean, that's who he is, isn't he?
I think actually though,
Has he done anything
The funny
else?
thing is, Arcade Outpost. I think it's Arcade Outpost. Who
he has a lot of woke stuff too. Though, I've noticed.
But Arcade Outpost, it's funny on their live stream. He's like the pro Brie Larson because Brie Larson retweeted one of his tweets once. So he like constantly will shield for her when they're making fun of her. Like, stop talking about my girl Brie.
I don't know, Brie. I mean, I don't get the Brie hate, but I mean, she's a traditionally attractive woman, and all of a sudden they're saying, "How dare you put these non-attractive people in our films?" But she's like the typical beauty queen. I mean, come on. I don't know. I mean,
Why?
I got nothing. I mean, I know why. Obviously, I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
they got their hate.
it's the same. It's the reason why there's a while there you didn't want Mel Gibson in your movie. You get somebody to say something kind of like hateful towards people, it turns them off.
I don't know. Brie Larson said a lot of really hateful stuff about men. In a
No.
similar sense, what Mel Gibson said when he was drunk and raging on the phone.
That's
I
why.
mean,
Well, that's why she didn't get the same reaction, right?
that an equal
All
com-
she did was say like, "Yeah, I don't really want fucking white men telling me their opinions on shit." I mean, that obviously isn't going to get her like canceled and taken out, but that's going to be enough to piss some of these white people off.
Sure, yeah. I mean, they already were. I mean,
I'm sure what Mel
looking for
Gibson did
reasons.
pissed off a lot of Jews. I bet.
Yeah, I mean, they were looking for reasons, I'm sure, to also be upset. I mean, they already.
And she's Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Which,
Horrible.
that was another thing too, is Captain Marvel's supposed to be like a male character, so they were kind of hoping, people were kind of hoping it would be a male, but, they also,
Is it originally a male?
Yeah.
Captain Marvel was a man. Oh, I
and
didn't know that.
they raised gender swapped him twice, so they made Brie Larson Captain Marvel, but then put the original Captain Marvel in the movie, but then also made that a woman.
Wait, aren't you looking forward to this counter swap that's gonna happen after like 10 years when all these female superheroes that were originally male that turned to female now gonna turn back to men?
I'd rather just good
Aren't you
movies.
gonna be? Well, again, like
I'd rather just like honestly,
good
I don't
movies
want
is
like
a very
the-
subjective thing.
Well, I
though,
know, but the
isn't
go
it?
woke,
I
go
mean,
broke thing. I don't want the leftist, liberal bullshit politics in my movies, and I don't want the conservative Christian politics in my movies either. Neither of them push too far. Like that's the thing. You can take the ideas. You can take the idea of socialism and make a movie about the idea without having to make it super political, right?
Can you?
I mean,
Look at
think you can.
Parasite. Parasite, I feel, is one
it
of the best
wasn't-
anti-capitalist movies, or at least great movie about inequality. And
Yeah.
I feel like people watch it, they still understand what it's saying and its political message. They're not gonna watch that movie and be like, "Oh, a movie about poor people and they get into a house and stuff." It's really explicit about its message, and I would be surprised.
I blame the poor people a little bit in that movie.
Yeah, that's the point. That was the point of the
Yes,
movie.
they make
You're
you-
supposed to feel bad about. You're supposed to feel disgusted with them at the beginning, and then swap it towards the
their
end.
actions.
Yes, exactly. That was the point. But
But-
like, I feel like when we talk about Christian ideology, for example, in films, that's so ingrained in our culture. Like, think of all the Zack Snyder films that
Yeah.
have Christian ideology, but Christian imagery and stuff in it, and
Yeah.
no one really talks out against it. Like, oh my God, how could you do Jesus Christ Superman
Because he's
over and
not-
over again? Because it's not a big deal.
I would argue because he's probably not going that far with it, right? He's not making He's not making Superman actually Jesus. He's taking some of the ideas, like the big idea of Jesus is like sacrifice, right? And that's basically even though it's probably a bad comparison to make with Superman, someone who can't really sacrifice because he's like immortal or whatever.
I get a
But
little weak when
they're
kryptonite gets
trying to take that
Yeah.
idea,
Yeah.
and so there's
Yeah.
ways of doing the idea, and there's also
Yeah.
just doing the idea of sacrifice without involving Jesus Christ at all. Just like there's an idea of doing like caring for other people or
Yeah.
whatever the boiled down idea of socialism is, without making it about socialism. Which is
of course you can do something like that.
Yeah,
But my point I'm trying to make is just that when things like Christian imagery is put into films,
Yep.
there's no real outcry against it, as opposed to, let's say, if you
Oh.
do something anti-Christian or do something like, say, you do the same thing but with a woman or a person of color doing it, and then all of a sudden it's a political message because now they're trying to make a point. Before, though, they were making a point when you have Superman, Jesus Christ. It's just not a point that needs to be explicitly made because it's something we always take for granted, sort of. So maybe I feel like that's where this woke stuff sometimes comes in, because its politics were always there. It's just we don't recognize it in the same way, and all of a sudden it's in our face.
Well, the politics were always there, but it's different politics now. That's
Politics
the thing,
you might
too.
not agree with,
politics
you
have
mean, right?
changed.
Yeah.
Well, it's also different politics, right? Because it's not the same race blind, color blind, liberal politics that we had in the 90s and 2000s. It's changed to more of a, systemic. Of course, I would say
Trying to
Marxist kind of view of like power dynamics and stuff, which is, which of course is another reason why people are calling it out too, is because it's a different kind of thing than we're seeing, and it upsets people, right? Because
Yeah.
I don't
People
know.
feel attacked by, I think,
yeah.
is some part of it. And I think there is to sort of support one part, I think, of your claim is that I think there are some movie makers who are explicitly trying to subvert certain things, and they're trying to almost thumb their nose at some of the audience that they're making these films for. Like, case in point, huh?
Taika Waititi.
For example,
Classic
but I think
one,
I think the big example is Last Jedi, right?
Wow.
That's a perfect example of a writer who kind of knows his audience, but didn't, or at least the typical Star Wars audience, and maybe wanted to write something that wasn't for them, and so the outcry against it, I kind of understand in a sense that yes, it is a bit upsetting maybe when.
Why was he directing a Star Wars movie?
Yes, he's directing something that.
Why? Why was he even directing
But
one?
at the
Like,
same
it's so confusing.
time, it's like it's not a bad movie. It's not. It's
Yeah.
not like.
But does it make
that even subversive or anything like that? He's just trying. I feel like it's just going. It's
does it
saying something against the audience, which is supposed to be seeing it, and then they take it particularly personal, which maybe they should because it is about them in a way.
Do you think he's doing it for political reasons? I think he's just doing it for artistic reasons.
I mean, art is always political.
So
the
then,
question
yes,
is non-political, but I think
Yeah.
it's different to say like, did he have an explicit political message he was trying to say?
But then,
I don't
if
know
you say
about
art
that.
is political, then
Yes, art is always
then
political.
all of these on the list are doing it for political reasons.
Everything's political in that sense. That's what I mean by
Okay.
everything's been political. That's why Go Woke Go Broke for
Well, the thing
some
is-
people find it interesting because they notice it's just a new thing when they've
Well,
always been political.
No.
in the
Like I said, I
past,
think it's
so.
more like you said. Everything's been political, but I think the politics have changed. So we didn't notice it before because it was what enough people agreed with.
Think
right?
about all those propaganda war movies that were made. I mean,
I
like
think the people probably agreed with them back then.
yes,
right?
they did, but they were still political and they were still propaganda.
Oh, yeah.
In the sense, and they were still made with a very strict political message.
But
in
it didn't get
part of the
backlash
film.
because the people agreed with the message, right? Yeah.
But does it make the film somehow better or worse, does it? It's because people
No.
agreed with the message at the time. Maybe now people watch it and they disagree with the message.
backlash can affect the amount of profit you make.
That's the thing. That's what
Good
the
or
go
bad
broke,
backlash.
yes.
I mean, like I said, like
So you're
like the
saying-
Mel Gibson thing, right?
Yeah.
If after Mel Gibson did his whole thing, somebody put him in a movie, I bet there would have been backlash against that movie. Like, you know, how can you go see that movie with the racist?
The racist.
Like,
Well, if he made a movie about him killing Jewish people or something like that, then I think that would be a good point. But I mean,
Passion of the Christ.
yeah, I know that's kind of I think where that perfect storm united there. But yeah, I mean, the Go Woke Go Broke. That's why it is interesting because it does have some sort of commonsensical notions behind it. Like you said, like people, if you upset a fan base, it's not going to be any wonder that they don't want to go see your movie.
Yeah.
But is it upset because of the politics? Is it upset because it's a movie
Just because
that
they changed it?
because they changed something in the movie, for example? Yes, like I said, the Terminator one, I feel like is more about the story just didn't mesh with the general Terminator story that people wanted to see. And I mean, because that movie still had everything that made a Terminator movie. They had Arnie.
Well,
they
yes,
had
but they did
Terminator
stuff with
people.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. They decided to put him in a sexless, like domestic. They basically
He
tried
was
to
a
take.
robot. What are
they
you gonna
did.
do?
I know, but he's also like a killing machine, and they decided that. Well,
How
what
else they
makes
gonna-
the most sense is once a killing machine is done killing, it goes on. It has a nice little family with. No, it would just self-explode or something like that. Like it's a
Yeah.
fucking Terminator.
I
It
know.
doesn't go have. They did that because they decided, like, you know, we got big strong dude. We've got masculinity, and what we want to do is show everybody that masculinity can be feminine. You know, we don't want toxic masculinity. We don't, you know, when they had Arnie do that kind of stuff,
You
but
read
they
that
want.
into that movie, really? Because
I mean, I've been reading
from that.
I mean,
I just thought that it was just Arnold
can see
Schwarzenegger
that
felt
stuff.
bad about killing the kid. Wasn't that why he kind of tried to?
why would he feel anything? He's a robot.
I know, I get it, but they had to have him in the movie somehow.
Yeah.
So they could have just had him appear out of nowhere, the same as he was
Should have
before.
just been an android bodyguard for the older lady, but they didn't do that because they wanted to put some.
But Arnold
more
Schwarzenegger
stuff.
had feelings in the previous movies too, though, right? He sort of, I mean, feelings maybe is a bit stretched, but
Yeah.
he adapted to the people around him. He wasn't just a mindless killing machine. He had personality. let's
But you
put
could
it
also
that way.
argue that he just
So-
learned those things to make the people around him
Maybe
more
he
comfortable.
learned to have a
Because the
family
whole
with
Terminator
people around him.
programming is about, you know, adapting to the
Yeah, yeah.
surroundings and kill. I'm just saying, you see that kind of stuff. You see, like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
you got the new Thor movie. What do they do with Thor? They make him a single dad and make him pretty much like a mom. What do you got in the new Guardians of the Galaxy movie? You take Drax, you make him like a dad, like a mom. They're doing this kind of stuff that would be
Mm-hmm.
usually more female roles, but they don't want to give those roles to women anymore because that doesn't look good. So instead, in the new Guardians of the Galaxy movie, they have Mantis go off, do the
Mm-hmm.
more masculine thing, wanting to go like fight stuff with giant monsters, and make the man do the more female thing because. I mean, I'm sure a lot of this started as just subverting the regular roles because we've done the same shit for too long. And maybe
we try
maybe
something
we're
new,
just doing
right?
this shit for too long as well, and that's I don't
I'm
know.
sure it won't last forever like this. I'm sure
No,
they'll
because
get tired of
yeah.
it as well. I mean,
Because-
an audience will get tired of.
Because one
certain
thing
kind
with
of
art too, I mean, maybe art is always political as well, but a thing about art as well is I feel like it's always trying to find something new, because the same thing gets boring, right? So art has to try to
Yeah, but I guess
change.
the part that I find that's the most disturbing about this whole conversation is like it feels like people that are talking about go woke, go broke as if it's a real thing is that there's a sort of force behind it that's pushing it. You know, I mean, like you mentioned, like they're trying to feminize the men and trying to masculinize the women, and I mean, you could it two ways. You could look at it as if yes, there's like some sort of diabolical force behind it all, pushing this onto people that don't want to necessarily do it, or maybe wouldn't have done it before.
Yeah.
Or you could say it's like a zeitgeist kind of thing. This is just the current mentality people are having about these issues, and of course it's gonna be represented in art because this is just how people now are viewing of the world today. I mean, things change, like you said, so it doesn't
And
have to be necessarily malicious. I guess is all
Of
I'm trying to
course,
suggest.
and it's also
So-
represented in a. I mean, it's no wonder we're seeing left-wing messages represented in a left-wing field. I mean, I would be curious.
Hollywood's-
Two things I would be curious about is looking into like a quote-unquote right-wing field and seeing if there are this kind of liberal stuff being forced into it as well. And another thing that would be fun for us to maybe go over a different time if the writer's strike ever gets this information is to go over the view counts for some of the stuff on Netflix to see like because that's one thing that the writers don't have either is access to the view numbers. So they really have no idea if any of this stuff is popular or not getting watched. And it'd be
Yes.
interesting.
That's why
kind
we're
of like
only,
this to go over
we
as
only
well.
specifically did this with movies because that's the information we have. Now, Go Woke, Go Broke obviously discusses everything basically.
Gillette, yeah.
It talks about products. It talks
Bud
about
Light now,
corporations. It talks about shows. Shows is a little bit more TV series, a little bit harder, I think, to distinguish. Especially because a lot of things are streaming now, like how good the viewing numbers are, you know? Because obviously, like, think of, like, the She-Hulks, the Batgirls. These are the things that people are screaming about as, woke and broke.
They got the numbers somewhere though. They know. It's funny because there's this thing that came out from Amazon that they kind of like tattled on themselves a little bit. That they said that like Rings of Power was like their most viewed show.
Yeah.
And then they put out like their ratings thing, and then the boys got more views or whatever. And it's like, oh,
But don't
like,
you think
what
The Boys is also woke?
yeah, I made like a
Yeah, you
videos
did make
about
a
it.
bit.
Yeah.
So then how is that?
The Boys comic
change
book
anything,
wasn't
though,
woke,
in
but
the sense that like the
how's
both
it changed?
those. I mean, again,
Oh,
I don't think that. I mean, I didn't.
Just
see
because
the
something is
power.
woke doesn't mean it's going to fit. Like,
But
yes,
that's what
Go
Go
Woke, Go
Woke
Broke
is.
would say that.
Yeah.
But I think it's just an expression of what. Like, I don't think it's necessarily a truth. Just like once you go black, you don't go back. I think it's just
That's
an
a truth,
expression
yeah.
where somebody is trying to, where it's an expression that's definitely going to be used when something woke fails, right?
So
to
it's
try to say that,
reactionary
like,
then, yeah,
yes.
yeah. So it's like trying to recognize. Well, I see. I don't think again. I think it really
I think they're
recognizes.
just trying to communicate the thought that they have
Yeah.
that like the woke shit is bad and it's going to and whatever it gets involved with is going to
I agree.
degrade. That's
agree.
their general idea.
Yeah. So woke bad, which. I mean, which we don't necessarily agree with, right? You've said as well. There are some decent woke things out there that maybe aren't bad, but maybe you don't love. But
Yeah.
I mean, do you think Black Panther could have been made that in a way that wasn't woke at all? Made a
yeah.
Black Panther that was absolutely no hint of wokeness in it. It's a
Yeah.
mostly black-centered cast, right? I mean, how could
mean,
you have done that?
Again, like we saw with Black Panther 2, apparently they just have an open book to do whatever the fuck they want. So they could have put the Black Panther with the Fantastic Four if they really fucking wanted to, apparently.
Yeah, but that
And
would
they
have
could
been
have
a
they
Black
could have
Panther
done like I said, like with the Quantumania movie, it has nothing to do with Earth. They just so they could have done something with Black Panther meeting Silver Surfer fighting Galactus.
Yeah,
Exactly.
could have something
And
like
Black
that.
Panther's done crazy shit like that in the comic book, so
true.
it's not like they don't have precedent for it.
That's true.
That wouldn't have to. That could do with. I mean, some things that they want to talk about without going woke.
But
you
I
know?
guess
they
the
made.
reason why
How
I'm-
do you make a Maverick movie without going woke? How do you make any movie without going woke? Right.
Maverick? Well, Maverick. The
So
reason
I'm
why
saying if they can make those movies without going woke, then
no, but
there has to be.
there's a reason
a
why
way to
though
do it.
I mentioned Black Panther is because it
Well, just
feels
because
like
black doesn't mean woke.
there's an aspect though of race swapping or gender swapping that makes something woke
Yeah.
in some people's eyes, not everyone of course, but so if a movie prioritizes the blackness, for example, of a character, that somehow is going to, some people might see that as wokeness. Or if they talk about female characters over male characters, that people might see that as woke. Some people might.
Some people, yeah.
Not everyone, but I mean, there's like, it's different than, like I said, with white characters. You don't really have that aspect. There's not going to be a woke part of it if they just focus on.
I see. That's the thing. Is I see the other side of that shadow, which is people going, "Oh, all white cast. That's racist. You know, why aren't there more black people? Like, you know, like, oh, they must have. Like you get the guy who made Us or whatever saying, I want to just film with black people because that's what I want. And
but he
nobody
didn't just film with black people though, did he?
No, but he says he wants to just hire black people, or whatever. And then you get something like, you know, The Northman, where the thing will be split specifically because there's no black people in it. It becomes all of a sudden political when it's just a movie that really
Yeah, I saw this online.
doesn't need to have black. Like,
someone
it's
else
just
said
a
the
movie.
same thing, but I mean, was there black people in Northman?
Was there?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
But because there were black people in Sweden. I mean, there were black,
there's
of
black
course
people
isn't-
in Manchester, Connecticut. That doesn't mean that a movie in Manchester, Connecticut needs to have black people in it.
Of course not. But
right?
I'm saying like
because
yeah,
a movie's about characters. It's not about race of people.
But you're making the race then, aren't you, in a sense? Because again, like if you
How
had a
so?
black person in Northman, someone could just say, "This is the black dude playing a Viking character." It might not be 100% historically accurate, or maybe it is historically accurate for all we know. But if you saw that movie, wouldn't you think all of a sudden, "Wow, they're throwing a black person in this movie because of their race, not because of anything else"?
Because I would
of
say
diversity,
because
let's
they
say,
want
yeah.
to win an Oscar, and so
But-
they need to have
but you
diversity
don't-
to win an Oscar.
You're implying a motivation to that. I'm just saying,
Well,
like,
I mean, the Oscar does say
Yeah.
that you need to have it,
Yeah.
so I'm not
They
implying
might-
a motivation. I mean, there is motivation out there for it.
for sure. But you're saying that they're doing it over any sort of storytelling or realistic aspect, which
I'm not saying
realistically,
all of them, but
there
some of them
could be
were.
black people in Norsemen, and it wouldn't be historically inaccurate.
And there could
necessarily.
also all just
if
be all white
everyone,
people, right?
But if for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
but if everyone was
That's probably
black,
more
then
likely.
maybe, but well, yeah, for sure, it could be more like. But I guess I'm saying is like, you wouldn't say all of a sudden, "Oh my God, why are there all white people in Norsemen?" I mean, I don't think people are really complaining about the fact there's diversity in Norsemen. But if there was a black person in that film, I think there would be a conversation of why is there a black person in this film when it's not a conversation based on historiography. It's a conversation based on perceived diversity quotas or something like you're saying, right?
I mean, you could say that that's what you see, but that's the whole point, right? It's because there's two different perspectives about
Yeah, I
what
know.
you see,
Yeah.
right? Like we live in the culture
Sure.
nowadays that I would say we live in the white supremacy culture. So therefore, I mean, you definitely have those people on TikTok
sure,
and
yeah.
Twitter all over the
There
place
is,
that say
yeah.
the mere fact that if you're not adding black people, you're erasing black people. If you make a character like the queer coding thing now, if you queer code a character now, it's erasing a character because it's acceptable to be gay. So if you just don't make them gay, it's gay erasure and shit like that. Instead of maybe the person, you know, the
But couldn't you see
writer
that
doing
just
whatever they
as
want
the
to do.
extreme case of someone like The Quartering saying a movie's woke because there's too many black characters in it or too many women instead of men? Like, isn't that the same sort of extreme sort
Of course.
voices that are the most pronounced you hear online?
And
But it's
that's-
not realistic, though, of the actual ideas being generally held
that's-
by people, though, is it?
Well, those are the extreme cases, I guess. I mean, the normal people. I mean, I bet if you, I mean, taking your example there, you take the normal person, you show them, you know, 0 BC Norway, and you show them a black guy, they're gonna be like, what the fuck's a black guy doing there? You take a normal person, you show them that, they're gonna feel like that. You take a normal person, you show them 0 BC in Africa, and you show them white dudes, they're like, what the fuck's a white dude doing there?
But
Like,
depends
this
where
is
in
just
Africa we're talking about. It depends on where. I mean,
even Northern Africa. Like we saw with the Cleopatra thing. Like,
there were black people in the Roman Empire, for example.
Oh, yeah,
there,
I
were,
know.
there were black centurions
there were black people
and stuff.
in the show Rome, but
Yeah.
it wasn't woke.
I know. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. So, but I think the
That's
problem
the thing,
is
it's not tied to skin color, but you have people on both sides who are tying on skin color. It's racist if there's no black people. It's racist if there are black people. Like you got the both sides of that. And so, what are you supposed to do? I guess you're supposed to, in my opinion, what you're supposed to do is meet in the middle and try to be colorblind and say the race isn't really what makes the difference. It's the motivation behind it, right, and what they do with it.
But isn't that tough to tell? Because the motivation behind it is oftentimes the individual writers or
Yeah. I don't know
creators
if you get interviews with them or
interview. But even what they say doesn't necessarily imply what they necessarily mean, right? Because
when you make
Yeah,
a
but
piece of art, you make it to be digested by a person. So it's not like most of these people aren't making these films so dense that you can't figure out what it's about. They make it really pretty obvious a lot of the times because they want people to be able to understand it.
yeah.
So
guess,
I mean,
but-
I really don't think that. Yeah, it's
But
one of these
casting
things
choices
where
I'm
it's
talking about, like things like that, like if they're gonna hire a certain minority
Like I
character
said,
or
so
not, or
if
you
you
know,
get
representative one.
quotes of people saying they're doing it on purpose, yeah, it's woke then, right? If they say that we need a diverse cast of characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we say the Immortals can't all be white people, then that'd be woke, right?
I suppose that would be
Yeah,
that'd be
because-
kind of if they're
Because
specifically
you're
trying
picking,
to.
yeah, because you're choosing to look at race instead of just like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like
But you're just saying that I feel like the colorblind thing is what the ideal that I think you're trying to strive for.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to hold up because, like I said, if you do a colorblind thing with Norsemen and you have non-white characters playing Norse, you'd have people arguing, saying, "Why are there non-white people in this Norseman movie when they should all be white?"
yeah.
And so the colorblind
Why
thing.
wouldn't they though? Because
Why-
that would be colorblind.
Why
Right?
wouldn't they be all white? No, if colorblind would be you just pick characters. Don't care about their race for their characters. You're not making a movie about Norsemen to be historically accurate.
I think he was, yeah.
I mean, these people didn't exist. These people he's making. He's not
Well, I
talking
know,
about
but-
real people. It's a fiction.
You know, Gladiator was like a combination of a bunch of different Roman people put together, but it was
Yeah.
still trying to be accurate to like what Rome was like and
So,
stuff.
yeah, they're trying their best, but the race of the characters, unless race plays a part in the story, it doesn't really matter, right? Like if you have a
Not
Norseman character who's black
entirely.
and they never mention that he's black and he's just a character in the movie, he does everything like a normal white character would do, or actor would have done, then why would it matter? I mean,
Well,
if in a truly race blind society, it wouldn't, right?
well,
Would it?
yes. I mean, that's the thing is in a race blind society. This is the thing. This is
Mm-hmm.
why everyone hates race. The color blindness is because
Mm.
it's always going to matter, but the whole point is we should act like it doesn't, right? So yes,
I
it
don't
is
know.
going to
I don't know
matter.
if I-
Race is always going to matter, but we should act like it doesn't because that's going to give us a better outcome than focusing on it. You know, like I mean, the Blade movie.
See, I don't.
That
I don't-
could that
yeah.
you feel like that would be woke as hell made today, but yet you watch those Blade movies, not an ounce of wokeness in that shit.
No, of course not.
And it's like, how were they able to make just a movie kind of like Black Panther with Blade
Didn't
without
he
making
say
it woke?
something about him being black? I think he did say something in one of his things. The black don't crack or something like that.
Probably.
I think he might have made some
He probably
pun
made a
about
joke
it.
or
Yeah,
something,
yeah,
yeah.
something stupid like that.
It was
which
probably
wouldn't
Wesley
matter. Yeah,
Snipes
yeah.
improv too, right?
Probably
Yeah.
was. But I mean, yes, you're right. Because again, like you watch that movie, I don't know if it would be his race didn't have anything to do in that movie. I think there might have been some things. It wasn't completely race blind, but still,
Well,
like it was mostly. I mean, they clearly didn't focus on his.
I think the
identity as an
yeah.
African American as meaningful, really, in that movie.
Yeah.
But if they made him as a white character, people probably would be upset nowadays, right? I mean,
If they made Blade white,
I
yeah.
think people would
Yeah.
get upset. I don't.
I guess trying to wrap some of this up too.
Yeah,
is,
I know. We're wandering.
could some of this just be just people thinking too much about it?
Well, see, I think yes,
Like,
of course,
'cause
there is.
I feel like we're also living in the age of like media review, media breakdown, media, all this kind of stuff where we're really.
Yeah. Well, there's an ecosystem, like we mentioned, the quartering and whatnot, that focuses on this woke content as a way of riling up a base or just getting attention to his videos. So I think there is a motivation or a financial motivation behind part of it. But I would say, because to bring this back into sort of the contemporary political sphere, woke is now a hot button issue, right? Woke is something they're going to be talking endlessly now for the next presidential Republican primaries. They're going to be talking about woke left and right. So
They did the bad job thing. They
Whatever.
got distracted and because a lot of this stuff too is like, man, they should be focusing on like critical race theory, but now they just wrapped it all up into woke.
yeah, it's woke because wokeness
Yeah.
is it's useful because I mean honestly, critical race theory is the same thing though. Critical race
I
theory
know,
is
it is.
a boogeyman word that they want to use to describe just about everything under the sun that they don't
I
like.
mean,
in my opinion,
It is a real thing though.
it does exist, but it's
People
not being
have
taught
gone to
in
college for it.
yeah, but they're not being taught in elementary school or
Yeah,
something.
in high school. though.
High school, maybe not.
That's
even
a whole different
really.
conversation.
I know it is, but
'Cause
I'm
about
saying,
to say,
yeah.
I there's stuff in high school that I went through that I'm like, oh, that's where it came from. Like I see it now. Like
Yeah.
that was totally critical race theory bullshit that I was being taught then.
It's not bullshit. Critical race theory has
That's
some.
up to
Well, no, it has some viable aspects to it. You might not agree with it, but it's helpful. It can be helpful way to understand the world in some sense. So it's
from a certain perspective, right?
Well,
I don't.
from
If
a-
it's a legal study, it probably is not something
Yeah.
everybody needs then, right?
No, for sure, not everybody.
So it's probably, it could just be muddying the waters of regular people if it is something like that.
But if it's a useful and legal sense, why not expand it to other things to see if it's also useful? It might
Well-
not always be useful, but I mean, to just say blanketly that it's bad, I feel like is
It is.
the bad thing. It's
focus
not.
on people's race like that.
But that's
if
what
it-
you
if
said.
it
We're
was-
trying to live in a colorblind
If
society,
it was,
but we can't.
I know, but that's the thing. We can't, but we should strive for it, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with like gender. I feel like we were doing a better job of that 10 years ago, of trying to make not a genderless society, but a society where gender didn't matter. And now it almost feels like gender matters more nowadays than it did back then. But it's like,
I would agree with that in some sense. Yeah. I think you're totally right that the focusing on identitarian politics can, in a way, reinforce those identities when we should, in reality, be moving away from identities in general. In my opinion, that's the way I would rather go for
you
it.
get people like
So I think
Nick Fuentes and Richard Spencer saying that's their best recruiting is basically that shit.
what the
Is the identity politics.
Yeah.
And that there's nothing that really radicalizes white men more than that.
yeah.
That them just saying, hey, Nazi is like doesn't do it as much as getting negative input from society, right, about your race. I mean, I'm sure that really helped radicalize people on any different race when, they're being discriminated against.
Well, when people feel like
Feel,
they're
yes,
on the
exactly.
bottom of the, they're
Because
being
what's
pushed
really actually
back.
happening isn't as important as what you feel, I guess. And,
Well, of course not. Yeah, we're all about feels. We're not really about reality. That's the whole point of what we're doing right now, I thought, was to focus on, is there a way to separate from what we feel about how the world's going versus any sort of real consequences or real data. And then I think what we point up is that things aren't obviously so simple. It's not like there's an obvious answer to it. I don't think
Yeah.
it shows that, yes, Go Woke or Broke is real, or it doesn't really show the opposite either. It
both
doesn't,
movies make all the money.
Yes, it doesn't show either side. It shows obviously it's much more complex than that. And well, I think to close it up, all I want to say is that any sort of from either side, any sort of overly simplistic explanation of the world or of a phenomenon, it can just generally be questioned or should be questioned. You should think that seems too good to be true. It's too simple.
Yeah.
Oh, woke is bad, and woke therefore. They do bad in the box office. I mean, that doesn't.
How is it any
truly
different than like,
show, yeah.
black people criminal, right? It's like
Exactly.
life is more complicated than just one thing equals another.
Yeah. So I mean, it's also that we have at our disposal ways of checking things out too. I think we can double check this stuff. I mean, if it really is going to show up in statistical data, it would be pretty obvious. And the fact that it's not obvious, at least, should show that maybe there are other things that are the more obvious factors in determining the success or failure of a thing. And people who are saying it might have motivations to try to obfuscate the, something like this. They might be trying to make it seem obvious when it isn't because they have their own motivations behind it. That's all, I guess. And it goes for both sides. It's not just a right-wing, left-wing, just a right-wing thing. It happens on the left, happens on the center. It's actually a political thing. This is why I think
I
Go
think
Woke or
it
Broke
kinda
is
goes in, like,
politics.
yeah.
It's politics. It's a
like,
reaction
I
to
was
politics,
saying-
but it is politics on its own. Yeah.
Because I was saying, like, I felt like years ago there was a different way from the other side saying, like, noticing things. Like, that's why I thought we were starting to get all like the TV tropes and that kind of stuff of like black guy dies first and noticing that kind of stuff in movies.
You don't think
and
that
like,
affects the?
and that did. And that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. We got it that way, and then that started to affect how they're actually making movies. They thought like, wait, if the trope is the black guy dies first every time, maybe I don't want to do that. And then that step goes to the next step, to the next step, until maybe you get to a spot where you're like, little black man shouldn't die ever in the movie.
Now we have a
Yeah.
movie about that entire trope, right? Is
Yeah.
this one coming out soon about
Oh, the blackening or something.
the
Yeah.
blackening, which is a
Yeah.
movie entirely about just that trope, isn't it?
Will movies get so meta at some point where it's just a camera inside the theater film in the audience?
Yeah.
But anyway, I guess my last thoughts on this thing is, the data really lets you know what's going on, and I guess more important than anything else is like politics and all that kind of crap. I mean, it's got an audience for it, but more so than anything else, I think it's going to activate the loudest people. So you'll get the loudest people on the right and the left getting up and about this stuff, which makes it seem maybe like a much huger topic than it really is. When maybe most people don't care, and
It's called Touching Grass.
yeah, and I'm sure, like with woke stuff, like you can make great woke movies and you can make great non-woke movies. I think probably the biggest I was gonna say the biggest thing with a movie is just having like good writing or something like that, or good creativity, which has nothing to really to do with woke or not.
But sometimes good writing could be playing off the tropes, right?
Could be playing off the tropes and stuff like that.
Yeah, but
I just feel like, I don't know, maybe the bigger problem is like, because also just because you make a good movie doesn't mean your movie's even going to make money, you know?
Nope, that doesn't.
And so
that's why we're not talking about good movies. We're talking about successful movies here. But yeah.
And that's why it's so hard to kind of like, go woke, go broke. I guess if there's a woke movie and you don't see it, I guess it went broke to you. I don't know. If you pirate everything, I guess every movie's gone broke.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can't tell you the last time I've been to the movie theater. So
last movie I went to see was Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and me and my girlfriend were like, no, never again.
And that had nothing to do with wokeness, did it? Or did it have something to do with it?
Oh, yeah.
It had a trans person in it?
The reason we hated it so much didn't have to do with wokeness, but there was the
so
female character was wearing a trans pin.
If the politics doesn't affect the movie at all, just
does it
exists
matter?
in it, then why does it matter if it was?
Well, then if it's in there, what does it matter calling it out? You know, it's like it's the same reason, like I was saying back then, they were calling out stuff like the casual racism they would see in movies and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
because it
maybe they thought that it should be called out because it's just kind of weird and they don't want to see it.
Or it affects people somehow when they watch it. Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
Which I don't know. God knows. I mean, God knows how much media affects us, and maybe more or less than we think. But either way, thanks for coming along on this little journey with us. For the one person who made it this far, which is me in the future.
Clearly, you're gonna have to cut so much out of this.
Oh yeah.
Cut it down to at least half an hour max. Can you do that?
An hour maybe.
An hour.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, I appreciate that one person who does end up watching this.
I'm sending it right to Nerdrotic.
Oh, he's gonna have so much to say.
No, I'll never see it.
Nerdrotic. I just thought Nerdrotic was Geeks and Gamers. I'm sorry. I
thought they were all the same person.
I mean, I know Quartering's different, but I didn't. I thought he was part of Geeks, but I guess not.
They have beards and they have glasses, right?
Oh God. I don't even know anymore.
The Geek Sphere is probably one of the most cursed places on the internet.
This is why it started in the Geek Sphere, though. This whole conversation. That's why we had to talk about it. But
all right, but
anyway, yeah.
Have a good night.
It's definitely next morning.
Go poo.
Go do.
Yeah, go do.